allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
start the recording then, Aaron?
Yep.
Okay. And move up 7.1, 8.4, 8.1, and 6.5 to the beginning of the meeting. We have a bunch of guests here to speak. Give me a second. Can I get a second to that?
Second.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passing. All right, so we will start with 7.1, which is focused on purpose, high school English department chair.
Good evening. I'm Troy Teedens, High School English Department.
Brad Rubenstein, High School English.
Billy Osborne, High School English. Julie Stevens, High School English.
And journalism. I don't know who's controlling this, but if we could go on to the first slide, thank you very much. One of the things we wanted to highlight is the involvement that everyone in this department has. And you can see that, especially with our journalism department, we've had students win Crystal Pillars, which are the Emmys, but at a junior level over the last couple of years. We've had some nationally recognized things with the yearbook and our journalism program. I really think is sort of a crown jewel of this entire district. All the things that Julia and her students do, from publications to some of the marketing stuff. The Facebook page, I think, is really stood out this year. So some of the things that us and our students do, we really get involved. We go on to the next one here. Where are we? So this is, where are we in our process, our cycle of education here? We have just finished, well, we're still in the middle of finishing our first year with the new curriculum that you guys so generously purchased for us last year. And we are very happy with a lot of it. The content is really good. We are implementing the new curriculum. We've established our standards, and we are in the process of our summer work. We're going to be looking at creating success criteria for the rubrics for each of those success criteria. We are, for the first time in a long time, I think, everyone is using the same assessments, the same tests, and looking at them in the same fashion, which is a huge bonus when we're all using the common formative and summative stuff. We had a great time during one of the professional development times when we were doing some vertical alignment with the middle school. And there was a lot of really good ideas and discussion about, we're doubling up on that and we're kind of missing out on this whole. So we're hoping that process, through some continuing dialogue, we're able to sort of smooth out the peaks and the valleys, so to speak. Next one, please. So some big ideas that we are dealing with. This year, our department came up with a universal writing rubric that we've passed out to the whole high school. This isn't a rubric that's meant to this is an English teacher's look at it. This is something that if any class from health to metals to math that require any writing on an assignment, that these are more of a checklist for things to look for. It's like, oh, no, this does not mean the minimum requirement. So that's something we're proud of. And we are well aware of the achievement gap that we're dealing with in this district. Our approach is being very critical in the selection of curriculum, what we are picking, which is why we chose the HMH curriculum, because it does have a broad appeal to a lot of different students. Our APEX program, we've been working with that to try and help reduce some of that achievement gap, and a more judicious use of the flex period that we have at the end of the day. Really has been a benefit for a lot of students, for all students, whether it's achievement gap or not. Being able to bring in students at the end of the day that might have missed a test earlier in the day, or were absent for whatever reason, sit down with them and say, hey, let's go over this. Gives us more one-on-one time. So that flex period is really powerful. Some of the challenges. Challenges here has been implementing the new curriculum. It's just new. And like any new teacher, or any teacher that's given something new, we have to go through it once. We got to drive it once to find out where the levers of the lesson are. I don't know if that makes sense, but knowing, anticipating when a student's going to have trouble, or anticipating something that might be a bump in the road, is a challenge. After we go through it, now we can reflect, we can look back on what we've done and make our practice better going forward. Another challenge that we've had this year is matching the results from the assessments in HMH, making that mesh and blend with our standards-based grading ideals. We've got some things jiggered, jiggery and pokeried and duct taped and baling wire and all that. But we think that next year, having gone through this once, we have a better idea of how we're going to do that. And probably the biggest challenge is that last bullet point there. We know the data reflects on us as an English department. And we whether appropriately or not, we took it as a light on us. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We felt a great deal of responsibility for some of the results and the numbers. And we spent a lot of time this year reflecting on our own individual practice, our practices as a group, and imposed a lot of stress on ourselves. Like, we need to make some results, we need to make some improvements. I think we have. I think the data might be mixed, but I think it's a step in the right direction. I feel emboldened after this year. I feel more proud than ever to be part of these guys. But that we put a lot of expectations on ourselves, whether rightly or wrongly. Speaking of strengths here, speaking of this group, I've taught for 21 years, not all of it here, and this is the best, by far, group of people that I've ever worked for. Our collaborative teams are positive, they're productive, they are on task. We persevere in the face of some of this adversity. Another strength, I feel, is our admin team. Kim and Nate and Shelley and Nicole have been nothing but 1,000% supportive. What do you guys need? How can we help? We are sometimes stymied to say, I think we're okay right now. I think, it is welcoming, it is reassuring to know that while we are trying our hardest, people are supportive of our efforts. And I commend everyone from the school board on down to give that support to us. And finally, I think our experience. We did the math, and we were looking at 82 and a half years of educational experience up here. I know I don't look that old, but some days I feel
Are you implying they do?
It is great to have this much experience from this many different corners of all the directions that have brought us here to Black River Falls. Enrich and serve to give new perspectives from everything, and with this much experience and trust with each other, ideas and collaboration, I think, have been stronger than ever before. So if there's anything else after that. Oh, yeah, next steps. What are we doing next? Over the summer, we're going to be working on our curriculum maps. Frankly, we've been doing that anyways. As we've been collaborating and planning, we've been keeping our own curriculum map. It's not as detailed as the formal one, But it's like, okay, we're hitting this. And it's just part of the planning. So that'll just be a matter of folding that over to something more formal. Creating that calendar of assessments. Right now, we are, I would say, within a day or two, commonly taught classes, within a day or two of the same assessment. It'll be nice to go around and say, all right, hammer that date down, hammer that date down, hammer that date down. Next bullet point on honing delivery of content. As I said, this will be next year will be our second roll through with our new content. A much better idea of how to deliver and what to deliver and when to deliver some of that content. We have just started this, not this last PLC, but the previous PLC. It was so nice to actually have data from 2 teachers come in and talk about, well, how my kids did well on this question, my kids did well on this question. I know that's always been the goal of PLC, but with so much change and so much work going into it, haven't really been able to bring that to the table as much as we wanted. So we are looking to continue that more focused next year. Specifically, as I said, I think in the cycle document, we are going to be working on the rubrics. We're going to be working on the assessment calendar and something else. Just left my mind. Something else. Our core classes are, I believe, up to date with where we're expected to be as far as all that curriculum planning and standard selecting. The next step is going to be to break that out into our more singleton classes, our elective courses and things like that. But again, I am confident that it is going to be really good stuff, honestly, with working with these guys in the past. It's going to be really, really awesome. You guys have anything you want to offer? Did I cover? Did I talk too much? No. Okay. All right.
Questions from any
Questions
board
for
members?
the board?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So this coming fall will be the first year truly that you have the 8th grades coming in to being freshmen, where you'll be able to compare how the ELA at the middle school is preparing our 8th graders into the new ELA. Does that make sense what I'm...
So they've obviously always received the 8th graders, right?
Yeah.
But this will be the first
With this new
meeting with the new curriculum. I mean,
curriculum.
because last fall was a rocky start, I very
Yeah.
much remember, with our HMH purchase, that was a little bit rocky. And so they will certainly, but we've always had a lot of data on our 8th graders that they've been able to see beforehand. But
I'll just be curious to see how well, with them coming in with the new curriculum being the
With
first
their new
time.
curriculum and see what we're, yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see how that looks, and I'm sure we'll have some early testing pre-ACT, so probably September, November, I would imagine.
Maybe a little bit smoother ride.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I have you done?
Yes.
I have just one question. In year 2022, 2023 and 2024, the DPI result, it says high school fail, 2-year consecutive. My question is, high school fail in mathematics and English. So we will not talk about mathematics, only English. I know I taught with Robinstein and Julie Teden in high school. We have around 400 children at one time in a high school. You folks are only 4 people, and you folks teach 400 children. That is my question. Are you short of staff?
The question, if I may respond to your question with sort of a random thought that just popped in. Somebody asked me, so Troy, I'm a genie. I'm a magician. I can wave a wand and I can give you whatever you feel like you need to be successful. And I thought a while for this, and as the English department, us four, and in our classrooms, I feel like we have everything we need. What would be nice, and I think this is no secret, but I would love to be able to have a fully staffed SPED department with full, aides enough for all students. We can handle whatever's in, I know we can handle whatever's in our classrooms. But it would be very nice to have, an aide that's there constantly, or have as many special ed teachers as our caseload workers. So I would wish nothing for us. I would wish that other departments would have everything that they need.
Okay. That was only my question.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just a question, obviously you guys are putting a lot of thought, a lot of energy into trying to improve some of the scores, right, with the kids. So you think about our community and our family members, and if you could ask of anything from the families in order to try to change maybe the effort being put into the learning, what would you say? What would you ask them to do? Like, where is the gap that it just isn't happening in the home lives to help bring it along right now?
Far be it from me to cast any sort of assumptions on the home lives of our students. I would only say this. This is something I did with Jackson, who's 3 days away from graduating now. He's literally grown up in the high school. From Julie was just saying, she brought him here when he was 7 weeks old to this. Just ask your kid what he learned in school today. Just sometimes that extra effort of hey, what did you learn in school? And don't let a shrug, go by. Ask them to think about it. That extra kicking the brain in gear a little bit more is going to help maybe solidify some of that knowledge, some of that stuff that they heard and thought about. Just sort of bring it out of there. Just ask what your kids are doing in school. That's about all I would say.
Yeah. I appreciate the whole team coming tonight.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right, next we have the 8.1 school social work report for expulsion report and homeless report.
All things supportive services.
Yes. All right, I am Vicky Mikulski. I'm a school social worker. I work for the whole district. This is just a big recap of everything that I try to do throughout the year. So, just a brief summary on my involvement within the school. We have our CAST and pupil service team meetings every week. That is me meeting with every building's principals, counselors, school psychs, the nurse, me, and our community health workers, just to be on the same page and share our caseloads and any concerns that we have with our students. I supervise the CHWs, the community health workers. We have 1.5 of them. The other half is our mental health navigator that I don't have to be anymore. She started just after Thanksgiving, so that was really exciting for me. And then our TAP meetings, our Tiger Assistant Team meetings as needed. So those are meetings with parents of struggling students. And so if there's a case that I'm interested in or needed at, I will attend those as well. Most of my job is not in the district though. It's connecting the district to other community services and resources. So I meet every month with Jackson County, the juvenile justice social workers, and the children family services. So any child that has truancy or a delinquency order of some sort or is placed in foster care. Same thing with Ho-Chunk. With the child protection workers, and admin and counselors do as well. Child protection and then intervention and investigation social workers. Northwest Journey, I attend all of the monthly meetings for each child that goes to Northwest Journey for mental health treatment. I'm there as a school representative because they do get an hour every day to work on their schoolwork, and so they try to keep them somewhat involved in school as they work on their mental health. I do attend the servant-led leadership group, which birthed the Jackson County Homeless Coalition, and I help co-facilitate the immediate impact section of that coalition. Also involved in Together for Jackson County Kids. So it's a bunch of organizations that come and we focus on mental health and substance use for all of our kids, try to make those things better here. And then the Dairyland Coalition is a homeless thing. I don't know how to explain it other than kind of like a seesaw. It's an area that serves homeless individuals and families, a whole bunch of different businesses or agencies all together working towards the same goal, and that we get our funding from that COC. So I'm involved in that as well. Some grants that I apply for is the Good Neighbor. So I have $25 gift cards for Goodwill for any family who needs them. The EHCY Innovation Grant is the homeless grant. We're in year 2 of 3 for that one, which is $25,000 a year. I always apply for the TIC grant. I got school supplies, $300 worth. I didn't put it on here, I did just apply again. So this time I'm hoping to get some laundry vouchers because those seem to be really popular this year. And then Stronger Connections, we're in year 2 of 3 of that one as well. That was a $300,000 grant. And I did apply for the Aldi Community Gift Card Program for $1,000. I have an idea for my homeless kids after school programs to see if we can do like a meal prep or something so they can go home with food at the end of the day. The Deferred Expulsion Program was started in 2012. That was before me, but we have had 153 of them. So this is an agreement, a voluntary agreement that we have with families for students who have first-time drug or alcohol infractions at school. Instead of going to an expulsion, we offer this agreement where they would agree to go for an AODA assessment and follow up on any recommendations of that, not breaking more rules, that kind of stuff. So this is all the data. Since 2012, this year we had 12 of them. The red line is just the trend line showing kind of how they're going. I did want to make a note that this year looks really awesome, but I'm not as optimistic. Usually I am. I highly believe that this is not necessarily fewer incidences of drugs or alcohol on school grounds, but more students being able to hide what they have here at school much better. They're able to put devices in places that we can't search, even with our little Wandy thing. And then there are cool little devices that people can exhale vapes into to collect the vapor and not set off vape machines. And so our students do have some of those too. And there's other techniques that I will not share because they can watch this back. But so I think it's just people are not able to get caught with what they do.
And I can fully agree with that and remind everyone that there are hundreds of schools that don't even have vape detectors, so there's much less effort to try to catch them. So I think any system we build, people are going to outsmart it, but I just want to remind everyone we do take as many steps as we possibly can to try to keep the schools drug and alcohol free.
And so this is just showing which grade our students are less savvy in 8th, 9th, 10th grade than they are in 11th and 12th grade, but that's how they fall.
Do you think some of that could be because they can't go to their cars? Like they don't have a car at
Perhaps.
school
I don't,
until
I
you're
guess I have to defer to.
They don't get to leave for lunch,
Exactly.
right? Like,
Things
Yeah.
like that.
Well, you look at 8th grade and there's not vape sensors at the middle school, and look at how many we're catching there. So middle
Yeah.
schoolers talk a lot more than high school students as well.
Okay.
So,
What did he say? He's that good? So Dan is also a sniffer, right?
Bloodhound.
most of our kids it's possession and consumption because they either have their vapes or they're actually vaping at school. This one, I just wanted to mention that this year we had a couple alcohol violations, which was it's higher than normal, we usually don't. But we did have a few alcohol, and then all the rest were THC vapes and edibles. Currently, this graph is outdated already since I sent it in to Shelley, but I have 11 in progress. 92 of those, 153, have successfully completed their DEP, and about 56 of them either violated the DEP or they completed it and then had another violation, which resulted in, on the next slide, one of these things, mostly expulsion. Any questions on the DEP before I go? Yes.
I do. So it looks like I don't know, recidivism isn't the word, what the word is, but the second offenses, people who have a first offense and then students who have a first offense and then do not go on to have a second offense outnumber students that have a second offense 2 to 1. Do you think this is a sign that this is a successful program and that these kids have been given a second chance and taken advantage of it? Or is this simply an enforcement issue?
I'm gonna say yes and no. It depends on the family. Some families, this is a really scary thing. They take it very seriously, like expulsion is a serious consequence. Others maybe not so much. And so those who have it one time and don't do it ever again have really supportive families and tend to complete the requirements of the DEP more so than those who have a second offense. So homelessness, I am also the homeless liaison for the district. So that means that I'm in charge of implementing the McKinney-Vento law. The definition of homelessness per the McKinney-Vento is that any family who is doubled up with another family because they lost their housing, if they're temporarily living in a hotel or a motel, living in the shelter, or unsheltered in a car, campground, or other place not meant for human habitation, including minor students that are living without their parent. So this is more inclusive than HUD's definition of homelessness, which is purely unsheltered, living out on the streets. This includes those who are doubled up. This was my data so far this year. 31 families we've identified as experiencing homelessness, and within those families there were 83 kids. They're not all school-aged children because I am required to also keep track of younger siblings, so we can try to help them into early intervention programs, and as they come into the system, they're already identified. So this works out to about 4.3% of our student population, and it is fairly evenly distributed amongst grade levels. Sometimes I have like a whole bunch in kindergarten or something, and then none until middle school or something. But this is about 5.5 students per grade level that are experiencing homelessness that we know of. 4 of these families were attending from other districts, so we had to help with transportation costs because they were originally here in Black River Falls. They lost their housing and ended up outside of our district boundaries. So per McKinney-Vento, they're allowed to continue attending here, but we're responsible for transporting them here. So it usually is gas cards that I'm able to give the families. That's the easiest for me, other than our other options are like trying to link up buses from other places. 13 of these families found permanent housing so far this year. 2 of them are outside of the district, so we lost them. 5 families moved out of the area. I had 4 unaccompanied homeless youth. So again, they lost their housing and are currently living without a parent or guardian in the home that they are at. And then 12 families, 30 kids, are currently experiencing homelessness right now. This is my percentage of students in Black River Falls, with the blue bars, that are experiencing homelessness. And so you can see that it's one of the higher years this year. The red line is the percentage of students in Wisconsin schools that are experiencing homelessness, and that is also on the rise. I included a Wisconsin Policy Forum report. Did they have all this?
I put it in the packet.
Perfect. Okay. So in the student homelessness, at a new high is the title of the report. I actually had Wisconsin Policy Forum call me to kind of interview me about this for a recommendation from DPI because our rates were one of the higher rates in the state, especially during COVID year, the 2021, where typically you can see the dip for Wisconsin was low, but that was one of our higher years, and so they were kind of just wondering what was going on with that. And so the conclusion on the very back of that report is really awesome. You don't have to read the whole thing, just read the conclusion. And then there was a WPR report on it, and I want on this report, and I wanted to share a quote from one of the liaisons that they interviewed for this article. She says, "Schools are one of the largest social services organizations because we don't turn anybody away. They can access food, clothing, emergency rental assistance, counseling, child care. We can provide everything for our families, but a house." So I just thought that was really powerful. I had never really heard it said like that, but it's true. You can't turn anybody away, and so we deal with everything that they come with. This is how our families are living. So the blue bar is number of children, and the red bar is number of families. The majority of our families are always doubled up with another family. This year, the shelter and our unsheltered categories are pretty high. We moved a lot of families through the shelter. This is directly because of the involvement in the Jackson County Homeless Coalition and our partnership with Western Dairyland, who owns the only shelter in Black River Falls, in Jackson County, actually. So as soon as it was empty, I was able to fill it with one of our families. So we filtered a lot of families through that, 5 families through it. And then unsheltered, we had families in campers, even throughout the winter, and hunting cabins. So the grant that we have for homelessness, we're in year 2. The first goal is to help increase proficiency in ELA and math. These graphs look horrible, but there's reasons why. My data is always delayed by a year because we just took tests this spring, and so I won't have those results until next year. So I only have 1 year's worth of data in here. We have a super small sample size, so the ELA and math tests are only certain grade levels, so I think it's like 3rd through 8th, and only the homeless students in 3rd through 8th, and then the high school would be the pre-ACT, so 9th and 10th graders, and then the ACT would be 11th graders. So very small sample sizes, and they change every year. So just because I'm homeless this year doesn't mean I'm homeless next year, if I'm able to obtain housing. And so then all of a sudden my scores and my testing scores don't count. They don't show up in the data. So I'm testing a whole new group of students every year. So it's really hard to follow their progress through my interventions that I'm trying. Does that make sense? Okay. My second goal was to accurately identify families. So I did that through staff training. We used mckinneyvento.org. I got 81% of our staff to complete that. It was tough, but I got it. It wasn't too bad. We had about 75% at the beginning of the year and slowly got up to 81, so I'll take that. Community awareness was another piece of it. So I have a picture of our homeless display out at the courthouse. I put a flag in the lawn for every homeless student that I've identified so far that year. And then the angel tree is up at the library, where our families are able to put up a few items that they need or would like to have for Christmas. And then the community is able to purchase those items. It's really fun delivering those because they are very, very grateful for everything that they get. And then 86% of, 86% of my families self-identified. So that means I didn't have to get a tip from a teacher saying so-and-so said they might be living or sleeping on the couch, and then I have an awkward phone call home saying, hey, little Timmy said that maybe you might be homeless. I say it better than that, but it avoids that awkward conversation, so 68% of families coming to me saying, I'm homeless, I need help, or going to the offices because they know that there is help available. The other picture is us, the Homeless Coalition, with Sarah Rodriguez, the Lieutenant Governor, at Community Connect. So that was our January event that we had at the Methodist Church, where we invited anybody to come and connect with community resources. Our goal is to get people who are unsheltered to come so we can count them for the point in time count, which is the Wisconsin's number that helps send funding our way. So the more identified homeless people that you have, the more funding we get in our area. So we wanted to draw them in. We go out looking for them the night before, but if we don't find them, we want them to come to us so that we can count them and get more funding to our area. So that's another thing that we have to work. And goal number 3 was just to do more outreach and case manage for their needs that they have. This has been difficult for me. I had a family outreach coordinator, part-time-ish for a little bit, and then they left. Tried to fill in the gaps with referrals to Western Dairyland. The shelter, Children's Wisconsin, had a program that they were able to help with, and Family Promise came to the area, and our CHWs as well. So trying to just piece together different case management, access to resources for the families. Hired a BLAST teacher specifically for my homeless families because BLAST was a hot commodity and it fills up super fast, and usually my families are not able to get those spots before they're already full. And so now this year, through next school year, we will be contracting with Children's Wisconsin to kind of help me with the case management part of this.
So just to clarify, instead of hiring our own staff member, we're gonna use a staff member who's already employed at
Yes.
Children's Wisconsin, and they will do some of that case management without being our employee. But we'll use that same grant funds, instead of trying to hire a very part-time person for us, it'll be an add-on to somebody who's full-time employed with them, hopefully stopping some of that fast turnover in that position.
Any questions about homelessness?
I do.
Yep.
It starts with a comment, frankly. We've had discussions earlier, or we even had a public comment regarding grades in this district. We just saw a chart that shows consistently over time, we have double the homelessness rate in this district than the state average. And so if you want to talk about comparing performance scholastically in this district to the state average, you need to be factoring in issues like that. We've just heard from the English department saying, we have what we need to teach English. What we need is more support for the supporters. So they got the magic genie question and they punted it to you. So what I would say is, what do you need?
I appreciate you connecting the dots because it absolutely breaks my heart. No, they're all here. Breaks my heart to hear that they have all of this stress that they are feeling, and there's not anything that they can do about all of this stuff that's going on in their kids' lives. So my magic genie question is that if I could have anything, I would have the family's trust. Sometimes I feel like my title, I introduce myself differently depending on who I call, who I'm talking to. So most of the time I'm Vicki Mikulski, the school social worker. Other times I'm just Vicki from school. That social worker title kind of really is a barrier for some families. If I take that away, it's a little bit more, but then I start asking them about what's going on at home, and then they're like, barrier right back up. So I would love just a little bit more trust from the families. We have a ton of helpers and a ton of resources. We just need the families willing to accept the help and let us know what they need.
Great answer.
So Vicki, and kind of building on that, do you feel like there is a gap in like the educational piece to our families about what type of things you can help provide?
Yes, because I don't think people don't know to ask the school for housing resources. So yeah.
And not that we have housing available, but
Right.
all those extraneous things that go,
Connections.
yeah, absolutely, that's it, connections to other community organizations for sure.
So, I mean, we talked about like what's going on with Facebook pages and things like that. I mean, is there a way for us to open up some of the walls with that so that families don't feel as scared to reach out? You know, I
Sure
think
can.
that
Sure can.
feels like it'd be something to take it for. And yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're going through hard times at home and a social worker calls and you have kids, the first thing you're probably going to be concerned about is whether or not something's going to happen to your kids. You know, and you're not going to be able to be part of their lives the way you want to be. So I think if there's a way that we can disconnect the fact that, you know, what your title is compared to what you're really there to help might help people feel more confidence in communicating and knowing that you're there to help and make sure that they keep their kids in comparison to if someone else was to call and, you know, they assist with. But
This
Yeah.
reminded me of the work of the community health workers as well,
Yep.
that last piece, right? Because they partner so closely with the families that they get to break down the walls a little bit, right? They can walk beside a little bit easier than a social worker can.
yes, I don't know, you know, team, if there's a way for you to help kind of connect the dots with that and some of the social media stuff that we're doing. I mean, and obviously, I mean, people, even in the hardest times, people still have their cell phones, they still use media the way that many do. So that might be a way that you could connect and bring them in. Thanks for what you do.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Up next, Mr. Schleifer, Tiger Investment Plan.
You're
Oh,
up.
I'm
Yep.
sorry.
No, I didn't know if you heard it. There's a lot of
I did not.
creaking chairs back by you.
So my name is Brian Schleifer, and I am the teacher advisor for the Tiger Investment Club. I think we do three main things, really, in my opinion. We do a stock competition where the students are all, they break into groups and are given $300 to buy a stock that they choose as a group. And then at the end of the year, we see which one gained the most, hopefully. Then we do the day-to-day trading of the stocks that are more long-term. That we're going to look at a few of them on the presentation here. And then lastly, as Vicki was mentioning very slightly, if we make a profit, then we take that profit and ask for ideas from teachers for things they may need that don't fit into a traditional budget. So.
That started off just as the high school, so I really appreciated this year. You opened it up to everybody.
Oh,
That was nice.
Guess I thought that was always, but
Well, I'm not complaining.
No,
I'm saying that it's much appreciated by others.
because elementary teachers probably have way more interesting ideas than high school teachers.
Perhaps.
With all the fun activities they can purchase. So this is as of April 25th. That's when our banquet was. So that's the numbers here. You can see just a little history pre-COVID at 119, and then the obvious crash from COVID. But then the recovery, and right now we currently sit at 148,000, 165.27. That's going to be a little lower because now I've cashed out $5,000 worth to cover our expenses this year. So it'd be like around 143, not checking today's market action. So this is our stock competition. So you'll see that the amount of shares is very low because the students can only buy up to $300 worth of stuff. But also quite a diverse number, like stocks that are diverse, not all just technology stocks or anything like that. So, but this is what our students decided to buy this year in their groups. And then our winner was Toyota. Actually, it's been a really, really interesting year. You can about imagine in the stock market. Over the summer, we made a lot of money, but then in the school year when that stock competition was going on is when we had the ups and downs and uncertainty and stuff. So that's why we didn't see the success in those stocks, while the success in our longer term stocks was definitely there. So then the next couple slides are just some of our bigger stocks, the ones that we hold more of. Apple obviously purchased well before my time, has just been a huge gainer at $51,000 over that amount of time. And we, as a club, don't really see a reason to sell it as of right now. So we just continue to hold on to that. McDonald's is interesting. So basically, I'm a supervisor. I look at it as I'm a supervisor. I'm not, like, if you're a coach, you tell people what to do, right? I don't do that. I just kind of set up the meetings and the students come with their ideas. So I just said, hey, if anybody has an idea of a stock we should sell that we own now and a stock that we want to purchase instead. And so students would come up with their ideas and they would make a presentation much like this for the rest of the club. And then they would email me their votes. That way they couldn't push each other into voting one way or the other. McDonald's was one. I cannot for the life of me remember what their issue was. I don't know if it was like a salmonella outbreak or something. But we thought about selling it and then we voted not to. And it has recovered from its low in like October for this year. So that was an interesting one. Visa is just a staple that they've owned for a long time. Hasn't been any discussion on Visa lately. 3M. One thing that's impressive is look at the dates and how long the club has owned a lot of these stocks and just how long term. Even these high school students who aren't going to be here 10 years from now, they're thinking long term as they make these decisions. So we're not looking for like big gainers this year to hit that niche or anything. We're looking long term. And then this is our big one that we sold. Last year we sold Boeing partially because we have to sell to cover our expenses for the year. And then if you recall last year, this is when Boeing had that door come off of their airplane. So we figured we need to sell stock, and this one looks like a good one to sell right now, so that's why we made that move. Otherwise, with the turmoil, or not turmoil, ups and downs of the market this year, the students weren't real comfortable or gung-ho about making any major changes. Kind of wait and see what happens, right? So.
How much, I mean, bowling stock has been challenged, so.
I'm sorry?
Did it ever come back after?
Actually, after we sold it, I stopped looking. That is interesting. I'll look tonight. They might have had that boost because apparently they got that big contract or whatever. So I'll see if that boosts them up in the short run. We did sell our Disney. I apologize. I forgot we sold Disney. We got a little frustrated that they seem to do the same thing every year and can't seem to make very much money off of it, which is perplexing given how much of their own material that they actually own. So. Bank of America we've just owned for a while. I don't really have anything to say on that one. Yeah, just companies that we've owned for a long time. Looking at it for the date here. One of these we did buy this year, and I can't remember if I got it onto the slides or not. Because we sold Disney and then bought. No, okay, this one. Thank you. This is the company we bought with the money we got from selling Disney. This was a suggestion by one of our more experienced club members, and they explained it to me. I try to keep up. Apparently what it does is it sells the equipment you need to mine Bitcoin and then mine some of it itself. That's all over my head. But they're at least a little more diversified. And so it's been going up so far. So it'll be interesting if this is more of like 10 years from now, is this the future type stock? So.
Does anyone have any questions? For our newer board members, I'm not sure, I don't remember the starting year of Tiger Investment Club. It's not a quiz.
I can throw
There
you a
was a
guess.
slide for
2010.
Oh, is that at the beginning?
2006. There was a slide
2006.
2006.
So
1996.
1996 was it?
when Mr. Lunda gave the money to Blackberry, he also gave it to Alma Center and Melman. I was actually in the inaugural Melrose Mindoro Club back in like 97, 98, so that's probably very close. So.
That's interesting that you were in one of the first clubs and now
Yeah.
you're advising it
Yes.
much later. Excellent.
Full circle.
So the last I heard, perhaps it's changed, but the last time I heard, Black River Falls was the only one still actively letting kids live purchase.
I talked to my son
Yeah.
because he goes to Melrose Mindoro
Yeah.
still. He said he thought they got the one there running back up again.
Oh, they did.
I
Okay.
think they were missing an advisor from what I
Okay.
heard. So.
There was a time that one of the other groups ran out of money, and so their clubs went dormant for a while, and so this has been a big source of pride, obviously, for the Lunda family and for our kids. And I just know that we have a lot of kids that when they graduate, they feel like they have some semblance of understanding of the stock market, and they go on to make their own choices after that. But it's an interesting club for sure. Any questions for Brian?
What do you teach?
Oh, I am U.S. government, AP government, and United States history.
AP government and United States history,
Yep.
as well as you are teaching stock market.
Yeah. So during club times, yes. Yep.
Yeah, in the 2008 and until 2014, there was a teacher, Chris Wobo, economics teacher. He used to do this, and this is my major, economics.
Oh, sure. Okay, very
So
good.
he used to take my ideas regarding buying and selling. So I share with my some opinions.
Sure.
No advice.
Yeah, right. No, stay away from the advice, but opinions are great.
Yeah, opinions are good.
I just think this is the coolest thing I've ever heard of. I didn't know about this at all. And my first question you answered was, what other schools do this? And
So the Wisconsin Association of School Boards did a big article about Black River Falls when Mary Jo, I bet it was probably 10 years ago, because she was on the WASB board and was mentioning it, and they said, you what? They like live buy things? Like you have real money that you're playing with? And so they did a big article on it a few years ago.
are there weird, like, non-profit legal investing school laws that you have to navigate? Or?
No?
That is beyond me.
Okay.
No, we're
We have a fantastic financial department that handles all that.
I just think that's really cool.
Just to add on to what Dr. Severson was saying, if you hear of a school having an investment club, most likely they are just doing like a stock game that they meet to talk about once in a while. And so to actually see, when you're doing a stock game, because we run one too just for fun, they're all buying penny stocks trying to hit that big home run. They take this serious because they know it's real money, even though it's not obviously their real money, but they know it has actual ramifications. So.
They take pride in those grants too, that they
Oh,
get to
for sure,
award, for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, they like to see whatever the students will approve or whatever the purchase that we make, and they like to look through and see what teachers are asking, or teachers and other staff are asking for.
What did you offer for help this year through the other teachers or?
Like an amount?
Oh, like what did you purchase, I guess?
Oh, okay. So the way that works is I just send out a Google sheet that has like the teacher's name, so forth, and they just come up with the request, whatever it is they think they need for their room or their club or whatever, and then they have to link it to make it easy for Carly. They have to put in the link and the estimated cost and that kind of thing. So yeah, it can be anything.
Have you picked yet for this year?
No, that's due. Oh, sorry.
That's
Their suggestions were due today, and then I wanted to later this week do it, but high school schedules with graduation, that'll get pushed next week, and we'll approve them next week. So, but a lot of interesting ideas that people have.
Are you using all of the gains from the prior year? You know, how much is it that you usually buy? I think that would be
So the
interesting to
2 years I've done it, we've done 5,000 each time. And I understand we made more than that, but I'm also nervous about the market. And one unfortunate thing that I foresee is as the economy or the market goes down, the need for the stuff that we can like provide goes up. So I'd like to kind of, if that makes sense, just hold a little back for when there's more of a, like we actually need school supplies more than what we already get requests and that kind of stuff.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, next up, 625, School Resource Officer Annual Report.
Alright, for anyone that hasn't met me before, I'm Kyle Laspish. I'm the School Resource Deputy for Jackson County. I cover all 3 school districts in Jackson County, so I work within the Black River Falls School District, I work within the Melrose Maduro School District, and the Alma Center Humber Maryland School District, and do very similar jobs in all 3 districts. So basically what I'm describing to you here, the numbers will be different, but the general idea of what I do in each district will be pretty much the same. So to start with, kind of some background for anyone that hasn't heard it before, the theory behind school resource officers from the National Association of School Resource Officers is kind of a triad model. They look at the school resource officer as a counselor and mentor, informal counselor, mentor, informal teacher, and then also kind of that law enforcement officer at base of security and safety within the buildings. And the idea to be able to provide all 3 of those, honestly, everyone looks at, the uniform looks at me as a law enforcement officer, but that's really only maybe a third, if not less, of what I actually do on a daily basis. So, next step. So, kind of a look at this school year. I've been in the Black River Falls School District, all or part of 125 days this last year. The way I work my schedule usually is half days in each district. So if I'm in Black River in the morning, I might be in Alma Center in the afternoon, Melrose the next morning, and then just kind of rotate around as best I can. Trying to keep it as flexible as possible, because obviously with the things I deal with, there may be a day when I just get a phone call in the middle of the day saying, hey, we really need you here right now, can you come down? And that happens fairly often, backwards and forth between all 3 school districts. and I try and keep things as flexible as I can to be able to accommodate that. Let's see. So, sorry, gotta switch the glasses every now and then. Some of the educational parts that I do, the informal teacher part of this, is offering some different educational courses to the district through both, they cover the safety and security stuff, but also cover some other areas where I feel there's a need. So Alice obviously is kind of that safety and security. I'm an Alice instructor. I was one of the original 3 Alice instructors for our area that went to get trained to do that when the school district and the county decided to buy into that concept as our way to do our variable response to active threats. I also am an instructor for Stop the Bleed and QPR. I do NetSmarts classes, which is a curriculum through the Center for Missing and Endangered Children, which covers internet safety. We've got curriculum all the way from kindergarten all the way up through high school. Obviously, most of my time gets spent in the junior high school areas, middle school, high school, but I do try and get to like the Red Creek school when I can, scheduling wise, to be able to do that. And I know we've discussed some presentations for the younger kids. Scheduling is just kind of where we struggle to try and make some of that connect sometimes. And then various things from Good Drugs Gone Bad, which is a curriculum for the 7th grade or junior high level, and talks about prescription medications, talks about other, kind of the interactions of drugs in our society and how sometimes drugs are good, sometimes they're bad, and we need to understand the difference and where they fit, where their use is in society. And then other than that, I try and get into classrooms as much as I can. Mr. Schleifer, who just walked out on me, has had me in his classroom the last couple weeks. Every time his government classes get around to their constitutional amendments, I come in and talk about the 4th and 5th Amendment, how that works in my job, how we write search warrants, how we do our search and seizure procedures, how the Miranda warnings work, all that kind of stuff, how those aspects of the Constitution apply to real life. As well as I'll stop in the health classes, talk about different aspects with drug use. So I'll stop in during their sex ed portions and talk about the laws around that kind of stuff and remind them that at their age everything is illegal. So kind of come around to a lot of that kind of stuff and give some context and legal backing to some of the stuff that we're teaching. I've kind of an odd one that most people don't think of is I try and get into the physics classes around the area when they get to wave theory and stuff like that, and I talk about how we use traffic radar and how the Doppler effect is used to detect speed, and how we use that for radar and LiDAR and all that kind of stuff. So just trying to offer as many opportunities as I can to get in, interact with kids and kind of give them a taste of how the things they're learning are going to apply to various parts of the world around them. So next. Some different trainings that I've been to. These are all, not all this last year, but these are over the last 6 years or so. Wide variety of things, including different mental health trainings. The most current one that I went to this last year was the Community Crisis Intervention Team training. It was a week that I got to go over to Wisconsin Rapids and train on that, and will in the near future be part of our fledgling community intervention or crisis intervention team that we're coordinating between Jackson County and Clark County to be able to bring some better response to mental health crisis, substance abuse crisis, different things like that. So it gives us some opportunities to train our deputies, train our jailers train staff around us in some better and more effective ways to deal with those kind of crises. Yeah, I think that's about it. So, and then this one, I'm not gonna go through the numbers. If you guys have questions, we can cover that at the end, but just kind of a breakdown, general breakdown of some of the different types of cases that I've dealt with. Understanding that, you know, in my role, you know, I do have to step into law enforcement role from time to time, but obviously when we're dealing with juveniles, we're trying to find alternative ways to handle situations before we get into the criminal justice system, or before we move something to the juvenile justice system along that way. So we try and handle things at a school level if possible, and then I'm available to help out if we need to address things at a higher level beyond that.
Kyle, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just the simple truancy piece.
Yes.
The effectiveness of that, has it made a difference?
I honestly think it's been very effective. I think this year, and I don't have the exact numbers, but anecdotally looking at it from the school, I happen to be one of the people in the school that has more of an opportunity than others to be out in the hallways during the day and see what's going on outside the classrooms. And with the kind of carrot and stick model that we've got with Tiger Pass and all the privileges for upperclassmen to be able to earn if they have their grades up, if they're not having any tardies, if they don't have any write-ups, those kind of things, along with that simple truancy option to be able to address the situation if kids are not showing up for class, or tardy for class, or skipping class, and not being where they're supposed to be. I think so far has been really effective. Of the, I guess I'll have to look for the number here. Where am I at?
2 citations,
So,
16
yep.
warnings.
So we've issued a lot of warnings, and I've had a couple actually since this was written up that we've added probably 3 more.
Kyle, can I ask for clarification?
Yes.
There have been more than 2 students who have attended Saturday school. So are you considering it a warning if they have received in writing you are simply truant?
Yep.
You can either go to Saturday school or you can be written up, and if they go to Saturday school, that's a warning.
Right, we keep it at a warning.
I just wanted
So,
to be clear, yeah.
An easy way to understand that is it's similar, at least from my perspective, it's similar to anyone who's ever gotten a fix-it ticket from a traffic officer on, you know, a headlight out or a tail light or something like that, right? You get the warning that says you have 15 days to fix this and you have to have someone sign off on it, otherwise you get a ticket in the mail. Same kind of idea. They get the warning, they have so many days to decide whether they're going to attend Saturday school. They then have that time frame that they have to attend that Saturday school in. If they fail to attend that Saturday school, or they refuse to go to that Saturday school, then we turn that warning into a citation. So then
It's a written warning.
Yep, it's a written warning
I just
first.
want to be clear.
And
Because
then
we've said the words 8,000 times.
Correct.
It's different when you write it out.
Yep. So I write it as a written warning that gets issued, and then if we have a failure to attend or refusal to go through the Saturday school program, then I issue a second piece of paperwork as a citation that's a $200 fine and a mandatory appearance in court.
And that's to the parents, correct?
That is to the juvenile.
To the juvenile?
Yep.
Okay.
So that's where this program I can only really go through the full process of this with any students that we have that are 12 years or older, because of state law for issuance of citations.
Okay.
So then if they don't attend that
Yep.
Saturday class, does the place where they were to attend for school report back to the principal?
They report to school. It's our school staff members
Yeah.
who are supervising Saturday
Okay,
school.
Yep.
So they let them know right away that they go out on Saturday, whoever's teaching it, they get a list of kids who are supposed to be there, and then they let them know right away if they came or not.
And what about those, do we do something on Saturday, like where they can go off-site?
So that Saturday school is usually there's like some kind of executive functioning kind of new lesson about responsibly planning your time or organization or whatever it might be, and then there's usually some kind of I know they've gone out to your place of business, they do like some kind of career because they're there because they weren't attending class, so would they try to link to job performance after high school, so they do some kind of a career visit that's all part of that same Saturday school.
You tell them if they don't show up, they get fired.
Yeah. And then this just kind of breaks it down further into the different schools and kind of the level of activity across our district here. And it's just kind of the final question to you guys as the board, and whether if you think there's value here, if there's other areas that you'd like me to focus on, or other things that other programs that we want to address or try and get into. I didn't, I guess, mention in the presentation, I'm also part of the Together for Jackson County Kids group that Vicki had mentioned, and that's where we do the QPR training and stuff like that. We go through the YRBS data from the kids, from the survey that was just taken here recently, when that comes out, and use that as a way to try and get a handle on what risk behavior or risks our children are being both exposed to, participating in, and kind of give us some direction on what we should be focusing on programs-wise and where we should be trying to target our efforts.
So you watch a lot of TikTok?
I'm not a big fan of TikTok myself, so I hear a lot about TikTok. Put it that way. I do have an account just to be able to keep track of my own kids and keep track of what's going on a little bit. But
So when we're talking about value, I'm not sure all of our newer board members, because we haven't had a contract due since many have been on the board. Kyle's costs for the position and supplies is split 4 ways, and so the school district of Black River Falls, Alma Center, Humber, Maryland, Melrose, Mindoro, and the Jackson County Sheriff's Department all divide those expenses, and so when we talk about value, we pay 1/4 of the total, and had on-site services 125 days out of 177 student days. So just wanted you to understand how the position is funded as well.
That was my question.
Okay.
That is student days, not calendar days?
Student days.
Student days, yes.
During the summer, you work for the sheriffs.
I cover a lot of patrol. I do try and follow up during summer schools and different things like that as much as possible. And then, plan for trainings coming into in-service time in August and whatnot. But especially this year with the Sheriff's Department being extremely short-handed right now, I'm going to be working a lot of patrol shifts this summer. So.
When you look at the time that you spend in the schools, Kyle, and what you're doing, do you feel the district itself could fully sustain enough work for a full-time SRO?
I would say probably, yeah. I think we would, it's a lot between 3 school districts, I'll put it that way. And I think at a minimum, if we had, kind of that genie question that came up earlier, right? If we had the availability, if we had the financing to be able to do it, it would be awesome to be able to have at least 2 SROs in the county, right? One for the Black River School District, just on population-wise, and one to be able to split between the 2 smaller districts of Alma Center and Melrose.
So on that note, if you are sick or if you go on vacation, that means there is no SRO for the entire district,
Correct.
county,
We
anywhere?
call the
The
city
entire
police or we call the dispatch at the county, so
Yeah.
we do not go uncovered. The city police are also very willing to help us, but that wouldn't help
Yes.
our neighbors, of course, if they should have a call.
Yeah, patrol deputies cover it just as they normally would have otherwise, right? If there are emergency issues, stuff like that. But yes, on the lower level stuff that wouldn't normally involve law enforcement response, then yeah, we would not have an SRO to be able to respond at those times.
Any other questions? So one more click.
When is the contract due?
December, and I
Yes.
believe it's this December. It's a 2 or 3 year.
I think,
I would need to look
3.
before I could speak for sure,
That's
but I know
fine.
it's renewed in December.
because I think we changed it at one point there. Yeah.
Yeah. We moved it to have your review in May so that if there was any concerns, we had ample time to talk about them
Yeah.
before it came time to renew the contract. So we tried to space that out. Any other questions for Kyle?
Kyle, are you involved in a lot of the deferred program, like when we defer an expulsion, first time offense, are you involved with those kids at all?
So I'm probably part of the process that initiates that. So I'm not involved with the deferred prosecution part, and that's the school discipline
Right.
aspect. But anything that is substance use, THC related, especially, goes through me because that's one of those areas that is a criminal matter. We're dealing with a controlled
Right.
substance. And especially, as of right now in the state of Wisconsin, marijuana is still, a criminal matter. So, I am part of, taking the vape devices or whatever it is that's confiscated, gets turned over to me. I do the, preliminary testing to determine whether THC is present in the device, and then, refer that to the administrators. I do my own parallel or separate case in regards to that and determine whether a referral or citation is needed based on age. Right, so juvenile referrals would be for juveniles up to about the age of 17, and then if they're really 17 or 18, then we would handle it as a citation most of the time, unless it's something more significant than just minor possession that would need to be handled with more of a criminal matter at that point.
So when you are called and after the case and the decision is made to do the deferred expulsion, afterwards, do you play a part after that process? Do you do anything like education, talking with those kids or
Not
that
currently.
student?
Vicki and our school counselors both get involved
We'll
in that.
do it, right. I just think, kids might look at a law officer,
Sure.
differently than they would the counselor.
Yes.
And the involvement and the education he can provide to these kids. Just a thought, how much more you could educate them.
Sure. I do try and do some of that in like our health classes when they're doing their substance use classes and things like that. I try and get in there to be part of that discussion. And
Do you do that at the middle school level?
most of that is at the high school level.
Okay.
On the middle school side, I'll do the good drugs gone bad and that type of thing there.
Okay.
So like, just a question, like
Yeah.
say like there was a 17-year-old kid that was like selling a THC vape in the school, okay? What would the repercussions be for that legally?
It's hard to discuss a specific case without like the entirety of the context. I would say that would be something that we would have to look at for the potential of a more serious criminal case, especially if we had evidence or if I'm able to develop evidence to support the fact that they're dealing or selling something like that on school grounds. But initially, the primary incident, incident would be the possession of THC, and then we'd have to develop further evidence or determine if I can prove the rest of it beyond that.
Our recommendation would be different if they were selling or dealing.
Yeah.
You would know that in the expulsion.
Right, I just did, I know like on the school end of it, like the,
Yeah.
like fine wise or?
The county would like a report always made. They've been very clear that they would like to always know. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much.
Hold it in, but draw that good information, right?
So we're up to 6.1, gifts and grants.
There are none to share to this tonight.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Alright, 6.2.
Shelley, I know this kind of thing with the scholarship development, and this talked about a little bit earlier, what was the total?
So it
gift to the
happens
kids?
Wednesday. Kim has that?
Probably can't say yet. then.
Kim, the total amount of scholarships,
Do you know what's getting handed out Wednesday night, or can you
Um,
divulge that until Wednesday?
total dollar amount, no?
It's 130 last year, so
Yeah.
probably similar.
Okay.
So we can definitely share out to the board how many students received scholarships and what the total amount was. We can do after Wednesday night.
Yeah, so, great. That's-
We have an
I'll
incredibly
go
generous
through with the
community.
next one.
yeah.
6.2, review revised core agenda.
Yeah, so this document slowly evolves over years. The parts that are in red are items that were changed during the 24-25 school year. I know that it's hard when you are newer on the board, that you have questions about things that you hear people talking about or that you just have a real strong interest in. And I say, we get there, right? And so we can always rearrange the schedule if you'd like to. But this is a nice roadmap to be able to keep track of all the things we know are going to come before the board. And so some of them are there because statute says the board must approve on an annual basis. And some are there because previously elected boards said, like the Tiger Investment Club, we want to hear every year what the bottom line is for them. You have that opportunity to agree or make suggestions or add things, delete things, whatever you would like to make sure we spend our time talking about. Obviously, you know, to be able to add more things to the agenda, you can always request that each month, but this is the items that exist currently on our core agenda.
What's the 15-17 budget bill? That's not 2015 to 2017.
No.
Just making sure.
Since that budget bill in 2015, that the note doesn't have to be there anymore until it's unless it's repealed. But starting with the 15-17 budget bill, all school districts were required to have their boards approve the academic standards that were going to be used for the coming year. So that got added in 15.
I noticed like the MOU stuff is on here.
Yeah.
I was expecting to see it maybe 4 times and I see it 3 times. Is that
Oh.
just because of timing?
Quarterly meetings.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
It
Because
is January.
June. It's October, January, and March, but in June, we do the co-curricular participation broken down by grade level and individual student. That is the data piece that's on the quarterly agenda for the MOU,
Okay.
right? And so it should still be labeled there, you're right, it should add it there so that it, future boards know that that's why it's there, but that is that participation report, so, but I will add it. Because you're right, don't call it quarterly, it's only happening 3 times.
But yeah, I wasn't sure if maybe in the summer we just, okay.
No, we definitely need to in June again. Any other suggestions? Otherwise, it does become the shared document, so I would ask for approval unless you had other thoughts.
Do you have anything you want on there as well?
Honestly, I bring them up as we go along. The one that I would point out is the board self-eval. It used to be on there quite frequently, and it is always your preference what you would like to do, but the board has opted not to do a self-evaluation the last 2 years. So if that is important to you, I'll keep it there. If not, now is your opportunity to say, well, you don't want to have to commit to that.
What happens with the self-evaluation?
Fill
Just
out
review it
like
yourself.
We
questions.
just review it ourselves.
Yep.
Doesn't get
So the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, they create a board evaluation tool, and they share it free of charge with all school districts in the state, and then they actually norm the data. They will tell you what your local district score was, and they will tell you what the state average score was, if that matters to anybody. When we've done it in the past, we've found that it leans heavily on political advocacy, and our board for many years has not been comfortable having a political advocacy board action. So that whole section doesn't usually apply, but there are definitely other pieces that do apply to the work of the board. So we had a hard time finding what time of year to do it, because it was like if it was too close to spring, people say, I haven't even been on the board very long, and
Yeah,
then, you
because
know.
we did it in November, I believe, when our first year on, and we opted to move it.
So now I think we moved it to February,
Yeah.
because that would be not my evaluation, but right before election.
Right.
So,
It would give us a little bit more time to understand what we were doing.
I think the timing is good,
okay,
personally.
we just need to commit to doing it.
Yeah,
Got it.
if we can get enough backing to actually do it.
Okay. And I don't have any other recommendations.
There was a, last year at the time that we were talking athletics with, and there was some discussion about uniforms at that
Yes.
time, and it felt like we were a little bit delayed
Yeah.
in that discussion.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to try to move him up a little bit this year? Or am I just?
No, that's a great point. Usually he doesn't come to the board to ask for those things. Jill has a budget with him that he would utilize.
Yep.
The cheerleading team was of particular concern last fall. First of all, the team just keeps growing and growing and growing, and they traditionally in the past were funded by fundraisers, and so the uniforms just really fell out of alignment with the number of kids engaged. I think you recently met with Andy about budget. Do you have an update you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, we talked about, so a few years ago, what happened is we took the activities budget out of the high school budget. It used to be part of the high school budget. So with tech ed and math and everything else, there was athletics and activities in there as well. So several years ago, we pulled that out, and we're finding over the last several years, perhaps we didn't pull enough out of the high school budget. So I've met with both Kim and Andy to have those conversations. Plus, there's been new things that have come up that boosters used to fund or used to help with, and now they're not, but we still use them, like Huddle, and that's a big expense. That's been coming out of Andy's budget. Part of the athletic trainer stuff has been coming out. So there's been things coming out of his budget that he hasn't been able to afford some of the basic necessities like uniforms. So we're hoping by moving some things around that in the future, they'll be able to be on a better cycle for replacing uniforms.
How much fundraising do the actual clubs and athletics do themselves? I mean, I've seen a lot of smaller districts do a lot more, it feels like, than what we do. Meaning that we're probably just taking it on from a cost within the budget, right? Rather than
Yeah,
kids having to go earn it a little bit. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so we set to kind of align a couple years ago. We had several of our teams had defaulted into the type of fundraiser that it was sending an email to each kid had to give 10 email addresses, and the company would send out an email asking for money. I strongly dislike those. Strongly dislike those, as did Andy. And when we got to like our fourth team that was doing the same thing, we said no more and asked for some different fundraisers that were more experiences, services, whatever. Yeah. So I don't know if the football team did that event last year at the Skyline, and that was their first year, and they made, I think, like $8,000. So, and football has a ton of equipment, right? So they need a lot more. Andy just did a huge brat sale to pay for Huddle for all of the athletics. I don't feel like fundraising is Andy's job. I feel like our coaches and teams should pick up more of that than Andy having to do that, but it's a lot. So I would say that we have tried to clamp down on some of the fundraising because we are in a district that's 50% free and reduced. How many times do we go to that well for money? I also think that our athletic boosters, their board, as Jill pointed out, some years they approve some costs and then teams start to rely on that. And then as their board changes, they change what they're interested in funding, which is 100% their right. I mean, they're fundraising the money, but there's just been a lot of differing thoughts around those fundraisers. So it would be a great conversation to hear from the board at some point what you guys think about community fundraising. I just get concerned when feels like the lazy approach to fundraising when you just ask people to write you a check. It doesn't feel like
I think getting the kids in the community is good. You know, the reason I asked the curiosity was like the Hansons with the Brock Barn and things like that. Like that used to be a very active thing now, and from some of my own involvement with groups and things outside of the school board and the school district, it's way too easy to just get that area reserved if you want to use it right now than what it used to be. So, I'd like to see if maybe some of our athletic teams and the teams that are asking for money would get their kids out there to engage with the community members, because I think what they'd find is that our community always has been extremely generous if you're engaged. So
it really comes down to coaching is challenging, right? It's the time that it takes the coaches to then do that stuff, and I'm not making excuses at all, because I agree that people are willing to engage when you meet them. I do know that other groups have done like some acts of service. When the Project Christmas comes around, we always have several of our athletic teams that are there either helping to wrap or package or so they do some of those things, but the fundraising is definitely a challenge.
We have more and more selling at concession stands.
That's
so groups are taking pieces of that. Like a group will go sell and.
Which is really helpful because we need people to be willing to work our concession stands as well, and then those teams make money for doing that. But
So I know Kayla had said that for cheerleaders that they were doing a fundraiser. Did that fundraiser, I haven't really connected with her recently.
I don't know how it's gone. I just know that it has gone through the right process because I signed off on it. And that was the other thing, that fundraising stopped going through any approval process. And so Andy's helped to rein that back in so that we're aware of we're aware of most of the fundraisers that are happening. But
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Sorry,
it'll.
No, that's quite right. They're good questions. They're good questions.
So I make a motion to approve the core agenda with the modification of adding just a note on the invoice in the quarter that we're gonna talk about that.
I second it.
Alright, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Alright, 6.3 memorandum of understanding with XE.
That is just the data sharing that you have perhaps heard an awful lot about. There was a large push, as I talked about during the MOU conversations, that they wanted, and I'm going to be clear, what they are asking for our data to be broken down as. You can't pick on me when I do it this way, because this is what they're asking for. They want Native American, 2 or more races, and all other ethnicities grouped together. So they want to be able to see those 3 groups is what they think is going to be most informative for them. And so all the data that we report out to them will be Native American, 2 or more races, and then all other ethnicities grouped together. Okay? And so that's all the data that we'll be sharing and the timelines that it will be shared. And they are excited to get that rolling next year.
Do we need to make a motion on that, or just?
No, just for your information.
Moving on to 6.4, open enrollment application 25-20.
Yes, so perhaps you recall the state establishes an open enrollment window, which is their formal time for people to apply to any other school districts that they would like to attend. And outside of this window, any single day, anybody could walk into any district office and say they want to move their child. and say that it is the best interest of their child, and they still are gonna get that. But the state still does this old format. So if you remember in January, we talked about our class sizes and the space that we had available in our special education programming. It might look very bizarre to you when I tell you that we have some families interested in open enrolling in, and we are recommending denying those applications because of course we would love more kids coming in and fewer kids going out. But we have looked at the IEP of the students involved, and we cannot absorb those costs without needing to hire additional staff. And so that is not part of open enrollment.
Is that something we are legally allowed to do?
That is the only way we are allowed to not, so there's really only two ways that we can deny an open enrollment if we have policy to support it, and we do. One of them is the board has to say what we have room for in special education, and last January when Melanie made the recommendation, it talked about one-on-one aids and significant medical that we do not have the capacity to take any more of those students on. We can't just say no because a student in special education, we have to request their IEP, look at what it's called for in their IEP, and then make a decision as to whether we can provide those services or not. And then the second reason is, per our policy, if a student has attendance troubles and is truant in their previous district, we don't have to accept them to our district, and that is the only way in our in the current state that we can, if they're already attending here, if they become truant and we warn them and warn them and warn them, at the change of the semester we can disallow their continued open enrollment. So we have asked several students to leave mid-year because their attendance has been atrocious. Interestingly, the open enroll out, you'll see that that list is much larger. However, it is much larger, period. In addition to that, some students are on here multiple times. So a family might make a request to us and 3 other districts. And so each line is not a unique student, but there are certainly still more students open enrolling out than open enrolling in. Some of our students who have open enrolled out to some of the virtual schools, we get a letter at various times during the year saying that that student has been disenrolled due to a lack of engagement. So when they are open enrolled out, they have that opportunity to say, you're not doing anything, you're no longer our student, you have to go back home. So then they come back to us.
Shelley, can you explain when we expel a student from our district, from school, and they move, how does that expulsion work from district to district?
Yeah, so if it's within the state of Wisconsin, each student, as soon as they enter public education, they are assigned a Wisconsin student locator number. That number sticks with that kid no matter which school they go to in the state of Wisconsin. So when a student is expelled from us, that goes into their record, and any district that they go to, it goes with an order of expulsion attached to it. There are some virtual schools that will accept expelled kids in Wisconsin, and so we have some of our students that we have expelled who are attending full-time to some virtual schools. And in fact, there's no law. We've had some kids ask us who've been expelled from neighboring districts who they've come and asked if they could enroll here, and our policy is that we do not enroll students during an active expulsion from another system. But that's a local decision, and not everyone makes that same decision.
Thank you.
Yeah. So these do need your approval because they are part of the formal open enrollment window.
So I'll make a motion to approve the OEO apps for the 25-26 school year.
And the OEI as well we have to do?
And specifically, are you approving our recommendation, which includes the 2 denials, or are you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
in its entirety.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Alright, all in favor, say aye.
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 Next up is 7.2, employment recommendations.
You can see ironically, when Troy was asked what he would wish for, it was a fully staffed special ed department. Kim and Nate have been working hard to make that happen. While we're not quite there, we do have 2 staff members hired going up to the high school.
So at the
that's-
moment, the problem is not funding, it's the positions are there and we're not able to fill them. Okay.
It's finding, this past year, for the first time, we had to go through a third-party agency and hire a special education teacher who zoomed into a classroom and taught high school special education via Zoom, which is not ideal, but we have to meet the letter of the law. And so our hope would be to be done with that, but that means we need 2 additional qualified certified teachers at the high school, so,
And that's includes the resignation.
yeah, yep. So those.
So with the special education aides that we are, because I feel like that's where we are really another area that we are desperately in need of.
We have high turnover in that area.
Yeah.
People start and then don't stay.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's appropriate to ask at this time as far as increase wages
Yeah.
and the benefits that come with it. Just because there is a lot of struggle in those
Yeah, we'll have to
areas.
talk about that when we start talking about a potential referendum. You know, because right now we've got a balanced budget that they've already put together, and that doesn't include additional.
There was an
raises
increase
for-
in salary
Yeah.
for our support staff,
Yeah.
but the benefits are the big jump,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if somebody goes up to full-time health insurance, that's a big deal.
Yep,
So, but I mean, I think we all know that there's a gap there, and the way we're gonna make it up is to create more funding for them to utilize towards that.
So do the special education aides not get full-time benefits the way the
Correct.
teachers do? That's the difference there.
So an aide who works 6.75 hours would qualify for 50% of a family plan. And a family plan is about $22,000 benefit, so. It's significant, for
So
sure.
we've been able to fill teachers, but the aides are who we can't.
We can hire, but we often struggle to retain. And it's really hard work, right? I mean, they're getting
did
paid
that.
hourly, and depending on which building you're at, there's some physicality to the role. There's some
yeah,
very tough
it's a
spots.
very difficult spot to.
Increasing medical needs for some people that don't have a medical background. It's ideal when we get some aides with a CNA background because of the increasing medical needs, but.
What's our gap right now, Shelly, on the number of aides you anticipate needing next year?
Yeah,
compared to
so there's a couple spots where we are reducing. I don't know that I have a definitive number right now because our aides don't usually resign now for next year. They usually wait, and then come July, August, they're finding other possibilities. I think,
Could
I
you,
would say we probably have 6 openings for next year.
okay,
could you bring that data in if you
I sure can.
Yeah.
I sure can.
Good. I'll make a motion to approve the employment recommendations.
I'll second it.
Alright, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Next up is 8.2 instructional materials adoption, high school biology.
So the high school biology department has been working hard on their curriculum and and professional development. Started last year with professional development through CISA services. Her name is Brittany Waltz, and she's been working hard with our high school team and our middle school team. We're starting to see a lot of good movement. For those of you new to the board, this graphic above is the work that the visual that we use to summarize the work that we are doing in instructional improvement, essentially. Below that, I just, for your information, linked the board policy. And then, let's see.
Sorry, it's all
That's
good.
okay. There we go. That's why I like that. So this page kind of goes through the process that we use to adopt resources. So that board policy referenced above states that when we're adopting materials or resources for an entire grade level, that we need to really look at something like ed reports and ensure that it is a resource that has been properly vetted and researched. For high school biology, that leaves us with 2 possibilities. And so we did an extensive review of those 2 resources, which were Kendall Hunt and Open Syed. there were other resources that the team was interested in. Maybe had like a strong research base, but ultimately we really leaned heavily on that policy to stay with those high quality resources. We did then. It kind of goes through. There it says 1024 that if we could stay right there, Jill, right where it was perfect. Teams of teachers used units and really looked at how those units align with their academic standards to see which of those resources help support the implementation of those standards the best. And then we worked extensively on what does a really strong curriculum look like in biology, that we really relied heavily on Brittany and that professional development. We created a rubric, and then we revised that rubric based on their learning, and it was a unanimous decision to go with Kendall Hunt. Kendall Hunt as a resource would be kind of what you would describe as a more traditional biology resource, which I always feel comforted by some of those things. But in the end, we really do think that is the spaces that would be the most helpful for the implementation of the work that they're doing in their full curriculum and teaching of the standards. Just for all of your information, we met with this team several times, Kim and I. To land at this space, it was a lot of learning and professional learning about the importance of that structured. So the team did a really good job of taking on new learning and changing some of their opinions about what might be the best way to deliver that instructions. Any questions? We're looking for approval for the adoption of these materials.
Can I ask how much is it?
It is $16,000, and that's for 6 years.
6 years.
Or it might be, 6 years.
Cost per year, Nicole?
Total.
Okay, so.
With different books?
You get one set of books, and then a lot of these curriculums have a lot of the pieces now that are online. So it was important to that team and to all of us that we have those hard books to tangibly have in the classroom, and then so much of what students are doing, there's going to be models that are online and different work that is more, lent the science that is virtual versus that book. It's really interesting in curriculum right now, the impact of all the technology advances and how that impacts what this is going to look like. And so that really great thing about having that online component is that you're not out of date for next year, right? Because it updates there.
So Nicole, does that involve purchasing licenses then? And so how many licenses do you have to purchase?
Well, interestingly, we did a lot of work vertically, so because there a lot of great work is happening. What happened a couple years ago is biology was moved from 9th grade to 10th grade because there were some concerns about readiness. But now the middle school has done all this great work and those concerns are gone. In fact, our science teachers were saying things like, they know about all these science words that I can't repeat to you right off the top of my head, but the kids are able to say them to their teachers and they're retaining stuff over time. And so because of that, and we have this really great rigor at the middle school, biology is moving back to 9th grade to 10th. Or yeah, 10th grade, sorry. 9th grade. All along, yeah. Sometimes with the numbers and grade levels, but so biology is moving back to 9th, which is a really sound place for biology to live. And so we're going to be able to, that shifts that whole spoken sequence. So for this year, we have like 200 and some licenses because we're doing it for 2 grade levels. But then after that, it's around 100 licenses per year. And then when there's variation beyond that 100 or 110, whatever that was, we just purchase a few more seats, is how that works.
I motion
good stuff.
to approve the selection of the Kendall Hunt material for biology.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Alright, motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Alright, motion passes.
So
Thank you.
earlier
tonight, Vicki McCall. I'm now going on to talk about Stronger Connections. I'm sorry, board president, I should have avoided it. But
I'll allow it.
okay. So, Vicki Mikowski earlier tonight referenced the Stronger Connections grant, which is a grant that was written and applied for during last school year or the year before. And so we got some of that funding and a start on this grant. And so this is just to inform you what the grant is. This is the language for the grant, the state level. And on to the next slide, what you're going to see, this just kind of summarizes, like, I don't think I'm gonna read through this entire presentation for you all, unless you have questions. Total grant, as I said, was $300,000, and then there's 3 main goals of the grant, and that is to increase attendance, student sense of belonging, which we believe is one of the real root causes for, at some points, why we have attendance piece of problems, or chronic absenteeism. And then another piece we're interested in impacting was the number of staff trained in school-based youth mental health first aid, and which we also think is one of the main things that impact our attendance. So with this grant, if we go to the next slide, and then, okay, so this is about attendance for our first goal. And then the next slide, just the whole format of this is that we have a goal and then a slide with what the action steps are. So tonight you heard about CHWs. Part of this grant pays for part of a CHW. Another part is sort of that mental health navigator. The mental health navigator in our district helps connect students to mental health support outside of, not paid for by us, but through their insurance. And then the resource map, like how can we connect families to different support within our community, and then analyzing data trends. That's just one of the other goals there. And then, I hate to read to you, but so that's kind of like the work of doing some big work in our district. It connects with some of the things that Vicki talked about. Goal 2 is about impacting that student sense of belonging, and then we have action steps. And that's where you see things like family care packages, just the tracking of the surveying. So because of the grant, our school counselors put out these surveys to our younger students as well. Then supporting Raise Your Voice clubs, and then it just repeats a lot of the same pieces.
And I think like the leads that are on there, those are still the active leads, not at the time that the grant started, right?
As of right now, and some of those will shift because there has been some resignations and there's been shifts in this area. And then another really cool aspect of the grant is our school counselors became trained to be trainers for youth-based mental health first aid. So we have several of our school counselors that are providing that youth mental health first aid for our teachers, but also different community members. For example, Health and Human Services they've done a training at, and they've also done a training for the Ho Chunk Education Department tutors. So a lot of good work comes out of that. And part of the grant is that we said we would keep you posted. So that is the posting of this information. No thanks. Unless you have any questions.
I have a question. Is this something that can get re-upped, or is this a one-time deal?
Well,
So if I could
yes.
This is actually a federal grant. You had mentioned state before, so this is actually a federal grant.
How to answer your question. It's
Yeah.
a federal grant, so it depends on what federal resources are available.
Okay. Department of Education.
Yes.
Thanks.
Alright, 9.1 monthly expenditures. Chili is the floor.
No, they were in your packet, as always. All of these are the monthly expenditures looking for approval.
Make a motion
Motion
to
to approve.
go ahead. It's you.
What's that?
You can take.
Oh, yes, this is my wonderful thing, yeah. Too much on my mind.
Well, actually, I think that's
I think
actually
it's the
budget
next
review.
one.
I think you're next. Yep, he was just,
But-
nope, you're good.
I'm saying take the motion. For
You
the-
both said
I'm
it at the same time.
Oh, I didn't even hear you.
Alex was
I know, I'm like a big old clomping
I'm
guy.
very into
Sasquatch.
hearing.
Board Sasquatch. That's not a position we have.
You got it?
Sure, I make a motion to accept the expenditures.
I'll say.
The monthly.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
No one opposed.
No one. Motion passes. Alright, so moving on to 9.2, budget review, 2024-25.
All right, do you want me to go first? And
Sure.
you can jump in when you,
Sure,
all right.
you just tell me
I
that.
think we talked
All
about
right,
some of
so in
this.
addition to the monthly expenditures that you just voted on, those are the actual expenses that have happened since last board meeting, right? And that is by statute, you have to approve the expenditures. So that's what those all are. They're by check summary, every check run that we do for the last month. Also in your packet, you find 4 reports each month. One is a monthly expenditure report. So it shows, it shows the budget, it shows the monthly expenditures, and we do the prior month because we're able to hopefully reconcile that by the time we have to get the packet out usually. So it's for April in your packet right now. And it shows year-to-date expenditures, all of that. Then there's a revenue report, same kind of setup. And there's a balance sheet showing you assets and liabilities. And then there is a cash receipts report. And that is to show you all the revenue that we've received over the last month, whether it's by check, cash, or ACH deposit. So those are the 4 reports that are also accompanying this big, huge document of expenditures. What I wanted to talk to you about just real briefly, I know you've listened to a lot of people tonight, so I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but we have to prescribe to an accounting system from the state. It's called WUFAR. It's a Wisconsin Uniform Financial Account Reporting, something like that. So we have to prescribe to this 16-digit number basically for all of our expenditures. And some expenditures have to be coded to certain funds, like special education has to be coded to a certain fund, Fund 27. Our biggest fund is Fund 10, which is our operating fund. And so that's where most of our expenditures lie, right? Unless they're coded, they have to be coded somewhere else. So governmental accounting is a little bit different than private accounting. We don't sell widgets, we don't have cost of goods sold, we don't have maybe normal things that you'd see on a income, profit and loss statement or a balance sheet. So we're a little bit different that way, that we have to account for things separately in their own funds. Again, I talked about the budget reports already, and I want to give you a little bit of a budget status update for this year as well, so you know where we're at. So that was the account number setup that I've kind of talked about. We have to have all those components of an account number. Really the only one that we have a little bit of flexibility on and we use is the location, a 3-digit code. That's local to us. So we use locations for the buildings, have their own location, right? Red Creek has its own budget center, so that's its own location. The high school has its own location. It's kind of a way to filter the budget, so it's not all $24 million in one spot. We can separate it out.
Joe, is the project portion only used for capital? Or is it
The
used for
project
all?
portion is also prescribed by DPI, and that is for certain grants. We have to use certain project numbers for grants. That's where that lies. Sometimes we use it for, the buildings use it for grade levels. Maybe they want to have a budget just for kindergarten or first grade or second grade, so they use a project number. So these are the common funds that we use. There are more, but we use all of these. As I said, Fund 10 is our fund and has the most activity. Our student activity accounts, all the groups that do fundraising and all that are in Fund 21, as well as any gifts that the district receives. We have to account for them there. Fund 39 is our debt service, and what that means is where we make our repayments of our bonds each year. The Fund 46 is our capital maintenance trust. We have a little bit still in there. We did use some of that money for some roofs in the past recently, but that is a place where we can deposit funds and we get aid on them when we put money into that fund. So they do qualify for state aid when we deposit into the capital maintenance trust. The building funds, that is where when we received the bond, when we received the bond proceeds, that's where the money went and where we made the expenditures for our referendum projects or our pool project for some of that as well. We had some notes that we had borrowed, and so that's where the funds went for that. Food service is all by itself as well, so everything we do in the nutrition services department is in Fund 50, and you've heard about the community service fund before. So just, this is a report, a snippet of the report you received in your packet right now. What the board had asked for last year, and again, we can do anything you'd like, but this shows this year compared to last year. So it's showing the budget from this year compared to the budget of last year. It's showing the fiscal year to date activity, so from July 1st until now in each year. And just so you can see, the first line is our property taxes. So you can see what we've collected this year compared to last year, what the budget is this year compared to last year, all the way down through all of the funds. There's a lot of numbers on the page, and when you get a lot of numbers, it gets harder to interpret, and your descriptions get a little bit smaller as well. So maybe it isn't always the best information that you can see when you're looking at these, but that is what we landed on last year. And then we also have the expenditure comparison report, again, prior year to this year by location. I talked about location, so we have locations for salaries and benefits. We have them for each of the building budgets. We have them for our technology budget, our capital maintenance project budget. All of those kinds of things have their own separate location. So we take all the perhaps hundreds of account numbers and roll them up into one line for that location. So that again is the expenditure comparison by location. You could also do it by function. So part of that 16-digit account code was something called a function. This tells you whether it's for art or music or math or science or whatever. That's part of that account code. We could filter down and just show expenses based on that as well. And then another part of the account code, a 3-digit code, was the object. We could filter by object and show salaries and benefits, purchase services, supplies, things of that nature as well. And then here's just a clip of the balance sheet that you get in your packet every month. Up at the top are our cash accounts, which are a couple of our checking accounts, and then our investment accounts. So you will see that change over the course of the year based on what month we're in, if we've received state aid or not. So as we get to some months, our state aid is dwindling in supporting our expenditures going out, but we have a strong enough fund balance that we're able to not have to short-term borrow and have a solid asset account. So let me give my updates first, and then we'll get into some of the other stuff. So just a real quick budget notes. Our gas costs were down slightly. This is an area that jumped last year. Cost of gas went up quite a bit, but it's down slightly compared to last year, but still up compared to 2 years ago. Our electric usage, we're monitoring using that Data Wrangler service that we purchased and subscribed to, and it helps us see the different ups and downs of our equipment when we can run them more efficiently. Maybe we don't have the, certain equipment start up, the HVAC equipment start up when we're also doing lunch or whatever. That's a simple one, right? Not having all that big equipment power up at the same time where we get in those peak demand times. We're using it to reallocate some of our Fund 10 costs to Fund 50. And the only way we're able to do that is by using Data Wrangler to have a solid number that we can put on what our utility costs are. So we're reallocating some of those costs.
Joe, did Data Wrangler at all affect gas usage too? I mean,
It's just electrical.
not like, so that doesn't tie in, like if you're not running an HVAC, it's gas, not really,
Maybe,
but not.
but it's primarily just monitoring the electrical
Okay.
use. Yeah, I mean, some of the pumps and variable drives and stuff like that would probably be affected, but that is part of our better scheduling that we're doing too. That Kent does.
Nothing where it's like telling you to change temperature in buildings at certain times of the day, any of that type of stuff where you can use less gas really.
Say that again?
So it's almost like a programmable thermostat.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
That's what I meant by scheduling. They're
Yeah,
scheduling
so-
better,
okay,
yes.
gotcha.
I'm not sure if that's part of data wrangling, but that definitely is part of the commissioning of our new
What they're-
equipment when we
Okay.
installed and implemented, yeah.
Right. Our basic cleaning supplies, everybody knows everything costs more, right, than it did a few years ago. They're still running more. And we have a lot of preventative maintenance and service contracts that we have on elevators and boilers and things of that nature, fire safety systems. Just a note in our salary and benefits, they're running close to budgeted amounts, but actually better than budget amounts because we have some open positions and we have a lot of unpaid leave in the district that's been not really an anomaly anymore, but compared to 10 years ago, we didn't have hardly any unpaid leave, and now we have a lot more where people are taking off. They don't have leave to support that leave, but we have a lot of people who are gone more often.
Can I just do a segue on
Sure.
that? Just kind of build off of the conversation we were just having about aides. When all of our aides worked 7.5 hours a day, they qualified for health insurance at 7.5 hours a day. And when they are gone on unpaid leave, they have to pay their portion of health insurance. And so I think that right now, there's not that benefit side of being gone unpaid leave, and so it's easier to be gone and take that smaller financial hit, whereas before it actually cost them something to have to pay in when they were gone on unpaid leave. And so I just wanted to point that out as an exacerbating piece of the unpaid leave and the support staff turnover. So go ahead, thanks.
Okay, property insurance, those areas have been real volatile as well. Anybody with homeowners insurance knows that their premiums probably went up this last year. It's no different for schools. Our property insurance went up quite a bit. That was due to the market in general, and also we had some major claims, right? We had a $2 million property claim. So obviously our premiums are going to go up a bit. Our work comp premiums, however, went down a little bit, so a little bit of a celebration. So that was good, and by those going down, we received just last week a $60,000 check for a dividend on our work comp, whereas usually that's around $17,000. And again, that's based on your loss runs and how you did in the prior year. So that was really nice to see. And our liability premiums were up a little bit as well. That premium is much less than those other two, so not as much money in considering. I talked a little bit already about Fund 49. That's where we have purchased our capital projects, our solar panels, our pool project came out of Fund 49. One thing we're waiting on is our solar project tax incentive reimbursement. That was to be about 30% of the cost of the project, so that's about an $87,000 check. We're waiting on that as well. That will offset the fund, part of the Fund 10 portion of that project.
How long ago was that submitted?
How long was it submitted?
Yeah, so how long have you?
I had applied I had to wait till the solar panel was working, so that was October, November. They finally accepted my registration in January or February, so it's supposed to be any day now, they say, so. Hopefully.
There haven't been any rumblings about those not getting sent out, are there?
No.
In fact, just the opposite. One of the ladies that was working with us when the project just sent a celebration that she believes that those are still moving forward. She felt something out there that they were going to happen.
And because of the complexity of the forms, we actually hired Whitfleet to help me make those filings, and they keep asking me, have you gotten it yet? I think they also believe that we should be getting it, just wondering if we have or not yet. Our debt payments have all been made for this year, and we added Fund 38 as a new debt to repay the borrowing for the part of the pool project. So just, thinking ahead about basic future budget needs, we have a lot of fixed costs and they don't usually go down, right? So we need to keep an eye on all of those maintenance contracts, the fuel costs, property casualty insurance, they all continue to increase. I know from doing this for a while, as our unpaid leaves increase, some of those savings, I guess, in salaries and benefits help offset some of those increased costs or surprises that we have sometimes for capital maintenance projects. We had it last year, we had to fix our elevator right here at the district office, and we didn't necessarily budget for that, but yet I knew we had that in our fund balance to help with that. I didn't bring my buses with, but I, received a lot of buses the other night as a joke. But we need to keep our eye on the buses, right? Because 9 buses out of our fleet of about 22 to 25 buses are more than 10 years old, and they have about 115 to 129,000 miles on them. So, and I know they're not cheap, but still something we keep looking at, keep talking about.
I know this was discussed before we pushed off the bus. Is that automatically going to get brought up again to our attention when and if the money for that bus that we expected comes in?
2 things. When the biennium state budget comes back,
In October?
Maybe sooner, whenever it happens, if there is increase in funding, whether it is per pupil aid or whether it is higher reimbursement rate for special ed, whatever that gives us flexibility in Fund 10, the bus was our first.
The bus will go right back on.
So we had Jill's retirement party on Friday, and there was about 18 little yellow buses that just random people would go up and give her throughout the night because we felt so.
Sorry about the bus.
Christy Prenchinsky also did not find it funny. But, so yes, that was one of our, yeah.
Did you dream about buses?
Nope.
I knew Jim, yeah.
So just in summary on the report formats that I showed you, really we could do anything you want. If there's an idea of how your mind works, or you'd like to see the reports a certain way, or have questions, we certainly can do that. If you want more information or less information, we can do that. It's hard to compare sometimes to prior years. I mean, for a lot of accounts, they're similar, and it gives you a perspective perhaps. But when we have certain grants, like ESSER funds, it's then really hard to compare to prior years because those funds are all gone now. And they had inflated our budget for the last 3 years quite drastically. So just thinking about that when you're looking at some of those reports as well.
So that's why the 24-25 funds are like $300K lower than the previous.
Yes,
correct.
Okay.
And then I agree graphs and charts would maybe be helpful, and I think that's where Jeanette's going as well. It's just, again, what level of detail, what are you looking for, I guess, and we can make that happen. I say we because I'm going to be tapping Brandon
Yeah, what are you
for
committing
this.
to here?
Don't make too many promises, Brandon. No. So that's all I have.
Perfect.
So I had I had gotten a thing in the mail from Hillsdale College, and they had in it, I want to say it was from 2017 to 2019, they did a study, and they had in there just an example of the study that they had done by graph, or by bar, I should say. And to me, it made more sense to me because I didn't have to sit and look at a lot of numbers and go back and wonder what department that was in. And so I just thought it was an idea. Dr. Severson made the comment, maybe quarterly even doing it. I can see us doing something like that. But just a different way of doing numbers and having a visual in front of me.
Does your system have a pretty easy way to print out data visualization? Like, so when you pulled that up, it says here's the breakdown for 2024, 2025 by and you put in the code for like art versus history versus math, can you literally just hit the pie chart button and generate one, or is it not that easy?
No, I'd have to create those. So the system does download into Excel, and then from Excel, I would have to create charts and graphs.
Just
It
like
really,
pivot tables, likely,
Yeah.
or not so much.
not directly in Skyward, not directly.
No, I get
in
it, but
Excel.
once you throw it into Excel, likely,
I don't a lot.
No?
Just pivot
Okay.
tables.
okay.
Well, we don't want to give you guys lots of work, but I also wouldn't mind some data visualization.
So just tell me what kinds of things you'd like to see, right? So this example is absolutely a bar graph. It is meaningless numbers to me because that doesn't make any sense to me. But what would you like to see? Like
think
percent
it's
of our budget by building, percent of our budget by salary
The different
versus.
funds that we have, that money is being allocated towards, and like what percent of that fund have we spent or have we allocated at that point in the fiscal year potentially?
Even the
Yeah.
basic,
Cause that would tell you, like, you know, like if your budget's X and at this point in time, this much has been allocated
Right.
towards it.
How much has been spent to the
so I mean,
total?
Yeah, and then it would tell us that we're so far into the budgeting, into the cycle of that money being spent over the course of the year, like, are we overspent at this point? You know, or maybe we're heavily loaded in the fall because, hey, we did a bunch of roof projects and it's gonna come back around, cause in the winter months, you're not fixing roads, that type of thing, you know? But I think just that type of graphing, I guess, in my mind, would probably make it easier for people to digest the information as far as.
Function by like, so I'm thinking of when you do a pie graph for the annual meeting, you do, here's our total budget, this percent is salary and benefits, this percent is supply, this percent is whatever,
Thinking more
right?
bar
Like-
graph like what Jeanette's got, not so much, cause like if you do pie, you're always
Yeah.
competing against 100%, right? So it's always gonna look like you spent it all, but you know, you haven't spent it all, you only spent a percentage. If it was just a bar graph and, you know, you just track like, this is what, you know, you could have last year's, which is a color, you could have this year's budget and you could have this year's spend.
Sure.
3 columns against each one of those, I guess, each of the, sorry, you have to go back to it, right?
Like the
Fund
funds.
80, Fund 10.
Yeah, into each one of the funds.
So no more detail in fund, whoops.
And and the rest of the detail is there for us to dig into if we choose to, but just a quick,
Okay,
so I
quick
think
summary.
there's 8,
Right.
Okay.
there's 8, right, that we have. So you'd have basically just 8 sections, each one would have 3 bars each, and I think that would give us a quick visualization of like, hey, are we you know, responsibly spending to what the budget is?
and even,
So,
sorry,
go ahead.
no, I'm impatient, I apologize, I do a bad job with that. Even things like, cause that, at that yearly meeting, those are useful when you do data visualization for the public. That's useful to us too. We haven't been here long enough and we don't get a hold on this stuff, and it really is helpful. But even things like, so we broke it down by subject, right? We have art, history. I would love to be able to see that compared to the DPI averages. Because we see our performance in, I mean, Iftikhar brings this up all the time, right? We see our performance in English versus in math versus in art. Art's one of the only things we're ahead of the curve on, you know. It would be interesting to be able to see, okay, here's our DPI performance, here's our budgetary, you know, like, are we putting, you know, how does that line up? So it just sort of,
Probably
Do you
monthly
think
on that,
DPI
it doesn't have to
once a
be
year.
monthly. It might not be a perfect match is the problem.
Well,
percent of whole?
I would guess that is in WISE data, right? WISE data, and you'd have to, WISE finance, and you'd have to look at a prior year. It's never gonna give you current year's stuff.
Correct.
So I don't know how valuable that is or not. I mean, that to me sounds maybe like an annual report kind of
Yeah,
thing.
like a
Yeah.
blessed- yeah.
But during the current year, you're never gonna know how you compare it to the rest of the school districts.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because it's all, they don't do live data available from other districts, yeah.
But what
After
Jeanette's
audit.
leading towards though, Jill, do you feel like you could do that, or is that gonna be like a monumental feat to try to give?
Yeah, you know, I have to think about how we report to the DPI. They may not care If it's math or science or social studies, it might be just what they call regular curriculum. So it's all, say those are all like 12400, 12600. They roll them up to 12000. They don't maybe differentiate. I'd have to look. So if that's interesting to you, you can always ask and we can look and see. But
No, I was just coming up with just a basic idea of how to visualize stuff.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't help, it wouldn't hurt to be able to see, here's what we spend our funding on, you know, like we said, whether it be, how much is facilities, how much is salaries, how much is, you know, and but even, you know, something like it breaking down within departments, how much is English, how much is science, how much is music.
I also think that the more information that you have available and understand, if we are going to our community for referendum, that helps to tell the story as well when they see comparison. So, yeah, I guess I'm picturing still, I know that you have generated a pie chart of the percent of our budget. It would be curious if there's a state average percent of budget, right? Because obviously the dollar amount is going to be completely dependent on the size of the district, but if we talk about percentage of whole, it would give us some information, but we can play around a little bit and see what we can come up with.
And I know you're a big fan of like branding and communicating with the public. Like this is a very good example because in theory someone could be watching on the camera. Hello. But if we get these up there, I mean, it's not just us. That can benefit
For sure. It's going to be another excuse for Skyward Cumulative, isn't it, Jill?
Oh, what a good idea.
What did you say?
Oh, I'm sorry that.
So Skyward is our student information system and it's our finance and HR and all that stuff. And they have an upgraded version that's called Cumulative that is supposed to do data visualizations. They've been trying to sell it to us for 10 years. When they first started trying to sell it to us, they were like, just kidding, it's not working very well. Where they bought it and we're like, see? And we just saw them last Wednesday and they said it's better.
it really should.
How much?
But is it better more than it would cost one of our employees to move it to Excel? And
We
make
haven't
tables?
even gone into the pricing of it
Some give
because
half of their.
Would it be,
if we're gonna train Brandon, you might as well learn the new one. What did you say?
It might be more than a bus.
I'm sure it's more than a bus.
Well, for less than a bus, you can get a minion to make all the pie charts you want.
Yeah, so I understand better about some, are you wanting that stuff monthly?
I think
The bar chart?
the
kind of?
bar chart thing on the common funds, like on a monthly basis,
Sure.
I think would be a nice visual to see. What Alex is asking for, it feels like, to me, that feels like an annual or semi-annual thing, probably no more
that's
than
fine.
that.
But
Is it something that, can we add quarterly to where we are at in relationship to what our budget is for that?
That's what they just asked for monthly, so that if there's, so let's just pick Fund 10.
So our monthly would be there.
Yep, so Fund 10, it'd be, here is what was budgeted and spent during the 23-24. Here's what was budgeted for 24-25. Here's how much we've currently spent, right?
Okay.
That's accurate what we had talked about.
All right.
is there anybody on the board who doesn't think we could all benefit from better data visualization of the tables we get monthly here?
Seeing as you get 0 tables and you just get spreadsheets.
And even
Yeah.
spreadsheets, the reports,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
think they're,
I think just for people that aren't used to looking at reporting from a budgetary standpoint, it's probably very daunting for them to look through that and try to pick out, like, can I tell how we're performing?
Even someone
Where
who is used to it.
Yeah, so if it was there in, like what Jeanette's asking for, I think it would be a much easier
Alright.
thing.
give it a try for next month
You
then.
think you could have it, that's, okay,
Yeah.
sounds great.
She's like half retired already.
I'm just wondering if
Before
there's,
you're done.
I was just looking at those common funds and seeing if there's any that, if there's a very logical reason that they don't get expended consistently throughout the year, right? Like if we did our into Fund 10, that's super sporadic when we get our state aid payments and stuff. And so our spending out, some of them might have a story with them, some
Yeah,
months,
and
I
I
guess.
didn't know if some, like in the summertime, like your CapEx, right, you're probably spending very heavily when the So
we often, like bigger projects will plan for end of June, early July, so like bridge years, yeah.
So, and that's fine.
And I don't know if you'll be as interested in the other funds. I think if you focus on Fund 10 and maybe there's what I am thinking about is like a summary of the full Fund 10, right? And maybe 27 they're
I was
together.
just gonna say.
And then maybe we split it out by salaries and benefits and by supplies or utilities or something that maybe is more interesting of that total, because a total is really gonna ebb and flow. It's gonna be so different. Because we spend out so much of our salaries, you may or may not know this, we allow our staff to elect to have 24 installments of their pay. We figure out how many hours they're gonna work on day one for the rest of the year. We multiply that by their pay rate and we divide it by 24. It does not necessarily equal the 2 weeks prior to payroll, right?
Do a lot of staff take that so they're
Right.
consistent?
Yes.
So
So they
then-
don't have to budget all summer.
Yep.
So then, right, so they receive their paychecks consistently throughout the summer, even when they're not working.
Okay.
So it's just, and we do a lot of that expensing of those summer paychecks in June. So,
Maybe some of the piece too to this is that, you have that turnover from tenured staff to younger staff where like the salaries are gonna fluctuate and you're gonna, like, for us to be able to kind of see like how that affects fund availability.
I think the staff pool is so large that you won't see that
It
movement,
won't
that's
be
my
that
guess.
much.
So in our budget recommendation too, there was always a line item
Yeah.
of a bit of a savings retiree to new hire, depending on the number of retirees we have. But then as soon as that dumps into the whole staff pot, that's about 80% of our budget, so it just gets so large that you're not gonna see those fluctuations very much, but.
yeah. let's
But
see.
we can take a look, why don't we bring some samples in June and see what you think, we'll get some more feedback.
I'll talk
Yes.
to Mr. Jar and see if he has ideas.
I just have a question on the food service funding. Do they outsource to the community and do any meal for community, let's say that a group is meeting Lions
Catering?
Club, catering services?
She does do catering services outside.
And that falls in that
Yes.
Fund
Yes.
50?
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
Yes.
thanks for thinking of that word.
With the sharing that's gonna happen next year then Shelley, so obviously there's gonna be some Fund 50 funds available for the district to utilize differently, right?
Yep,
But still towards Fund 50.
it has to stay within
Yep,
Fund
okay,
50,
so
yep.
what,
That's why she's been able to buy some pretty nice equipment for the kitchens because the reimbursement rates have been high and we participate in all of the federal programs, but it all has to stay within Fund 50.
Yep,
There's no
okay.
borrowing from Fund 10 to,
Yep.
or from Fund 50 to any of the other funds.
but it could allow her to make some different selections as far as like menu planning and that type of stuff where, yeah, okay.
She has, because she has such a high, there's a rule that she can only have 3 months of operating expenses in her fund balance. So she had to intentionally spend down her fund balance this year by buying equipment and doing different things, because she couldn't carry that large of a fund balance after COVID. So she has intentionally been doing that, plus the data wrangler charging utilities to her budget has really given
Don't have
her
bus
fund
for
balance a
delivering
little bit of a
meals.
hit, so
Okay.
gonna have to monitor that too.
Could buy a bus for Fund 50 for delivering food to the different schools.
Buy a food truck?
Yeah, food truck.
We could buy a food truck.
a good idea.
Call it the taco
Pull up
bus
to
or
all the
something.
games. I have a question which may or may not be related to this, but do we have like a grants coordinator or is it everyone for themselves?
So we do not have a grant coordinator. We offer a stipend to any staff member who successfully writes a grant. And so they get to keep a portion of the grant if there's administrative fees allowed in the grant, up to a certain capped off amount, so.
So is there, do those things usually not pay for themselves? It's not like, if you bring in someone who is a full-time grant bringer-inner, can they actually fund themselves or not rare?
Some school districts try. I know Sparta has tried that position a couple times and it's fluctuated between full-time, part-time. So I've always been really proud of the number of our employees who are willing to go out and get grants. The challenge really becomes, so then you start a new program with these grant funds, and then the grant goes away, and nobody wants the program to go away, and then we are asked to try to absorb it in different ways, and sometimes no just means no. We don't have the money or the capacity to do it without those additional funds, but yeah. The after-school program would be a great example of that. If that grant goes entirely away, this board, we're gonna have some serious conversations about how much Fund 80 is willing to support.
And I think that might become an issue with the whole discussion of a referendum.
I think we gotta be smart enough to think about building it into the referendum, and then if the grant is there for it, then you use that referendum money towards something else.
And I bet if you do a community survey as part of trying to build up, I think Blast will be popular.
Good.
I hope.
Right, more to come in June. I think by June you might be getting the Jill Brandon show, not just the Jill show. How about that?
Color bus you want, Brandon?
Stop with the buses.
Green if we can find it.
Okay.
Did we got 9.3 to cover financial audit?
We do have to cover that one yet.
Yep. So I have both the financial statements were in your packet. They're lengthy, I know that. In the first few pages, page 10 and 11, are some good summary things about our district. Maybe describe why our fund balance went down this past year, right? We had some intentional spending. We had some surprises that we spent on too. But so it talks about that. So the intent of those pages is try to explain all the technical accounting notes that the auditors put together. They put together most of this report, right? I put together a few pages, that's it. So that was in there. And then also what was in there, we also get this every year. It's the audit communication to the board. What we don't get every year is a finding. And last year we had a finding. And the finding was about our internal processes, and primarily that we had a lot of journal entries that happened while the auditors were here. We were still reconciling accounts. We were still working on stuff. I don't want to make excuses or anything, but we didn't wrap up things as early as we should. We had some green people in our office as well, so it was definitely a new year last year. And good news is a lot of the journal entries that were made were things that we found and we needed to make. We needed to reclass or we needed to recode. So there was probably 45 journal entries, and we have journal entries at the end of every year. That's not unusual. The number of journal entries that we had last year was unusual. So we had about 45 journal entries. 36 of them were ours that we say, if you look at them, they say PCB, which means provided by client, or PBC, provided by client. And there are probably 9 of them that were provided by the auditors. And that is not unusual that they provide us some. If you read the notes at all, they have technical guidance on, accounting for financial statements that I don't have all that knowledge, and certainly our people in the business office don't have. So that was the finding, is that we had a lot of entries after they got here. Some of them were larger in dollar amount, but it was mostly the numerous entries that we need to do a better job and be more prepared for them when they come.
They usually come in August early, and so the fiscal year should be wrapped up end of June. July is a little bit of leeway, but the fact that the entries were happening in August was later.
Yeah, they come the second week in August, and sometimes we're still getting invoices and things in August. That's not unusual, but there is a lot of work between June 30th and August 9th when they come. But there are some of the things that we were still doing that should have been done sooner. So we've talked as a business office team and have started making those checklists, and have started double checking. We're doing things now already that weren't done until July last year. So the things that we can do, we're doing. So hopefully this doesn't happen again. So it's just a note for here's letting you know that this could be an improved area, right? Here, we can do this a little bit better, and so.
And I just want to be clear, it wasn't that there was any funds used inappropriately, it was not that there was any funds unaccounted for, it was nothing like that. It was too many corrections too late in the fiscal year. So I just want to be really clear, every penny was accounted for in the right places, it just was a messy path to get there.
And then we strive not to have any findings, right? I can count on one hand the number of findings we've had in 25 years that I've been here, so it's unusual and unfortunate, but we learn from it and we'll
So like reclassifying certain things, like different.
So she talked about those WUFAR codes, so when the person first got the invoice, they coded it here and then, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Jim, I have one question for this. Require audit communication to the Board of Education?
Yep.
It is very nicely written. I read each and everything and I made my notes.
Okay.
It's very professionally done. Every dollar and everything. On page 4, paragraph number 2, this is not a public record. This is top secret. It's for only us, right?
Right, so yes.
So if the people would like to know, so I have to forward to you because you are the custodian of the records.
To Shelley.
Shelley, you're
Oh, you are the custodian of record, so I forward them to you.
Correct.
If they want to know what this is about.
It's an internal audit.
Yes.
It's not a public audit. It's not done by the state or DPI. This is us paying for an internal audit to make
Right.
sure we don't make mistakes.
Right?
So honestly, if somebody asks for an open record for that, I'm gonna need to check with our legal counsel and see if that is disposable or not.
Yes. No, it was just the only thing popped up for me because I always live among people.
Yes.
So I want to make sure what I'm talking. So this is not for the people. Thanks, Jim.
There was a grumpy comment at the end about us not being quick enough at clawing back lunch debt.
Oh,
Is
Yeah.
that something that we need to, but then they're like, well, maybe you don't want to be a bunch of ghouls who claw back people's
Well,
lunch
yeah,
debt.
so they-
Like, is this anything that we really need to act on, or can we just let the status quo
Yeah,
be on that one?
it was in there last year. It's just a
Every year
it's
they
a
just
comment.
like.
They have different goals with financial statements than we do in reality, and that's what they're saying. It'd be great if you could just write all this debt off or get everybody to pay it, but we understand.
And wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be
But we
great?
understand that's not reality, and we're doing the best that we can by trying to collect it. Or
So we see that every year. That's just like
the last few years, yeah.
And so the last 2 years, all of our meals have been free, and so that is helping our negative lunch balance problem because it's not growing anymore, it is,
And there's been some angel fund
Yes,
contributions.
definitely.
Brought that,
We
yeah.
usually apply not usually, during these 2 years when people aren't accruing more debt, those angel funds are used for seniors at graduation. We just had that spreadsheet go around of the seniors that either have fines or fees or negative lunch balances. And high school and Vicki Mikulski work well with them. I know you have a part-time job, you could pay this portion, we'll pay the rest of that. So I appreciate that there's usually a little give and take as opposed to people expecting the whole debt to just go away, so. I think it's well done.
Need to approve the financial audit?
Yes, you do.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial audit findings.
I second it.
Okay. All in favor, aye, to approve the financial audit communications?
I
Nay?
nobody know.
Nobody, okay.
Yes.
Thanks for keeping track for everybody. All right, approved.
There were no meeting minutes in there, Marty and I apologize, or did you?
Yeah,
keep
they're
minutes?
in
Oh, I'm sorry.
They're in there.
yeah, they're in there.
Put them in there.
So I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting.
Second it.
Okay, approved in a second. I get all signify by saying aye to approve meeting minutes for last one. Aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Nobody know.
All right, nobody, so it's approved. District Administrator's Report.
Sure, I have two things for you. The first is the Child Care Center, Little Tigers. So they are forging on. The construction is happening. The doors are primarily in for the additional exit to each classroom. And the staff, she's just about fully hired. She feels pretty good about the number she has with the number of kids that are planning on coming right away. They are hosting an open house on May 29th from 5 to 7 over at Gebhardt. So if you are around, they've done some really, really nice work. They have 6 rooms that are scheduled to be inhabited starting June 2nd. And right now they have 39 kids that they're expecting on that first day. They definitely have another large group of kids that were coming for school age care once school gets out. So that would start on June 9th. So they'll get the other kids all acclimated first a week earlier before the school age kids come over. We are having some minor palpitations regarding building inspections. We think we are there. Not that we are questioning whether the work is done correctly, but getting somebody to come in and look at it and sign the form in time is creating a little angst right now. So right now the individual is supposed to be here Friday, and so that was moved up a week from next Friday. So Caitlin Osegard, the director, is feeling a lot better about having that little bit of leeway there. But we're a little bit concerned and kind of tracking that, so we would know at least a week and a couple days in advance if there's anything prohibiting us from opening on June 2nd. So if you're interested in the open house, May 29th, 5 to 7, otherwise ready to open on June 2nd. There was a question about, oh yeah, sorry.
With that, so Caitlin's time right now with the other daycare in town, when we open, does that?
She has already ceased over there. She is full-time there because she's been hiring our staff and now training our staff, and they've been unpacking. There's more packaging materials over there from all the stuff they've bought than is reasonable.
Any update on how that childcare center is?
They have hired a director, and they are feeling more optimistic than they have been in a long time.
Okay.
So that's great news. Great news.
39 kids, how full would that be?
Nowhere near full, but there's several more infants and toddlers that come school in the fall. So there's already people, and after summer there's an increase. And she said she's still receiving phone calls now that the signage has gone up, more people are noticing. She just is being a little bit hesitant to sign them up for June 2nd until we feel more confident. So right now, 39 confirmed. Yes, yes.
Do we have any staff taking advantage of the new?
Now, right now, she's hired all new staff. There's some high school kids really excited to start with summer, though.
I guess, let me rephrase it, do we have any staff that are choosing to put older kids at that childcare center yet?
One of the middle school aides is moved over to working at the childcare center instead of the work she was doing at the middle school. So. I'm sorry.
Enroll, like how many of our staff members?
Kids have their children. I'm sorry, I don't know that number.
There was a lot of questions from the community about.
Of that 39, how many are our employees?
Exactly.
Got it? I don't know, but I will find out.
For future, would be good to know.
Yes.
Hopefully we see a number that's not driving things for the community, you know.
But what would be the right number?
I don't know.
Right?
I don't think there is, but it's just be curious like what percentage of the kids are, which is still it's a great opportunity for our employees.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, absolutely. And we've got capacity to help all, right? Perfect. I just wanted to provide a little summary on federal funding, just because that question had come up. For the board's information, we currently receive $3.4 million from the federal government. And of that 3.4, 1.3 is just the food service stuff. So when you consider all of the aid that we get from the federal government, 1.3 million is just for food service. Our highest, most significant funding sources from the federal government come in 3 buckets. One of them is Title I, that is funding that we get based off of the percentage of our free and reduced students in grades K-3. No, it's not just grades K-3, that's AGR, sorry, it's not. That is directly linked to the poverty demographics in our community. That is about $450,000. That is Title I. The second one is IDEA flow through, so that is part of our special education funds. That one is also about $450,000. So that is direct funding for special education services, IDEA flow through. And our other most significant bucket, which ironically is also $450,000, we receive impact aid. Our impact aid goes out to districts who have land that you do not collect property taxes on, either because it is military or Native American lands. And so there's not as many federally impacted schools due to Native American lands and populations as there is military, but we get a significant amount of aid in lieu of property taxes is what that is. So that comes into the district and immediately goes into Fund 10 for our general expenditures, just like property taxes does. So there's not a separate line item for impact aid. So of the remaining $2 million, that is 3 significant chunks of it, and then there's a couple other smaller pieces that make up the rest. The Stronger Connections grant is part of it at $200,000 on here. The 21st Century Grant, the after school program, that also is like $130,000. So those 3 big chunks are really the lion's share of it. We really don't hear anything official at all about the likelihood. We do feel confident for this fiscal year, 24-25, we will receive all of the funds that were originally promised. In fact, several of those accounts have already been paid in full, but we just feel really uncertain about what next year will bring.
Have there been any new grants posted at all to apply for the Department of Education?
Not from the Department of Education, no. I went to their website today to look for some resources, and I just keep getting broken page after broken page after broken page, so. Yeah. So, yeah, is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, and
Perfect.
the impact if we lose it.
Yeah, significant.
Yeah.
I mean, significant. I honestly, so when we were talking about it, the grand total at 3.4 million, the 1.3 million that is food service, as not comforting as it is, those costs would be passed along to our families because then they would be paying for all their meals again, and a pretty high rate because there's always been some subsidizing, right? And so there's always been a portion of our food costs. I can't even imagine what our lunch, the price of a student lunch would be if there was 0 federal subsidy for that.
USDA food contracts and things like that are driven to it.
Right. Absolutely. And so that's one portion of it that those costs would be directly passed along or not. Those are decisions we'd have to make. But those other huge pots of money, 3 $450,000 grants, those are just not out there. During ESSER funding times, those grants were out there, but just not at that amount anymore. So.
Would you be able to, what you read off, send?
It is another one of Jill's reports, and so the numbers are this big. I can share it with you, but it really needs some interpreting.
I'll redo it.
It needs some interpretation.
That was a 415 report. Come on now.
Yes,
Today.
I messaged her at 4:15, said, hey, could you?
Thanks,
So,
Joe.
Yeah.
No, it was just
Okay.
a thought.
That is it for my report.
Yeah.
And 23, WASP and other, any comments or?
How many, Kim, how many graduates
132. We have a couple we're
helping?
helping get there.
This is one of the biggest groups in our system too.
How many did you
It'll be
have
a good-
last year?
120-ish is my recollection, but don't quote me
No.
on that number.
I thought, oh man, there's a lot of kids graduating.
This is a big class.
What
Yeah.
percent are cum laude? Or
So we
recognized
had
for the laude thing?
49 kids recognized in the Law Day system.
Okay, so
I
30,
never did the
40.
percentage. Math's not my thing.
It's all right, 40%. Great.
Great. First, workshop attendance.
I know that thing came in the mail for that week-long one.
A summer, yeah.
Yeah. But
Summer vacation. Alright, school board connection opportunities.
There's lots of end-of-year celebration stuff happening for sure, graduation being one of them. Wednesday night at the scholarship event, you are certainly welcome to go and clap and celebrate with families as well. Individual schools can certainly send out when they're having some of their last-minute things, but it's just usually a pretty positive time. I think it's probably okay that Mother Nature decided to make it fall again because the kids were getting way too summery with the 80-degree weather and a couple weeks of school left. So, but yeah, lots and lots of good celebrations happening.
Future agenda item identifications.
One future agenda, add more teachers in English department. We will talk about it.
So it's not a budget conversation, that's how it would have to, well, it would have to be a budget conversation if we were gonna add teachers.
can we talk about it as like part of the referendum, Iftikhar? Like if we're gonna put a referendum together, because we've already put a budget together, right? We've already approved that budget, so
Yeah,
if we're
but
looking to
school
throw
will
that
be-
idea out, like,
Yeah, school will be closed June, July, August. So it is good to talk about it. Today we heard a lot of good things.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, like though, if we're gonna consider it, right, like, we need to consider it as a potential line item in the referendum that we're asking for, if we're saying we wanna add staff to this, to whatever. Does you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So June is usually a pretty long meeting because the buildings all do their end of year improvement plan reports, and there's some of those annual reports that also happen. So June is usually a pretty long one. Then you get
July?
Preve in July. It's usually pretty short.
Yeah, definitely.
So, just an FYI, June and July will not be here.
You just heard about the marathon meeting and you said, you know what?
I'm willing if I can get the time right. Yeah, like I'm 5 hours behind you, and I would. Yeah, I'm going to watch.
Poor thing, you know.
Bora Bora or something, Hawaii.
What can I say? But I would love to be able
Zoom in
to.
if possible.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We'll try to coordinate those.
Yeah, so I'm
schedules.
5 hours behind you.
If you zoom
Not
in
if I
from
come with you,
Hawaii,
I'm not, but
you have to rub it in if you're there and we're here.
Zoom in so you can
Yeah.
see it.
I have a non-future agenda thing, but just to the administration and faculty, just thanks for the school year. I mean, I know we're close, but we don't have another board meeting until it's all over, so to all the families, your graduation seniors, congratulations on getting them through. I hope they go out and do great things and represent this school district at a high level, like many graduating classes have and continue to do. And then just to the kids, didn't have a lot of expulsion hearings this year. We had more than what we'd like to have. But I mean, we appreciate your efforts and continuing to show up and give a good effort every day. So, if you're actually watching, but thanks.
We made up for it just in the last few weeks.
I bet there's lots of students watching that camera right now.
perhaps time for your motion.
Adjournment.
Motion to adjourn this meeting now.
Right now. Alright, got a motion. Anybody got a second?
I'll second that if you are.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Nobody say no.
Didn't have any nays. Guess what's it then? Oh, it's before. 8.